Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Transatlantic Call-In Show. This is the place where you get to call in and talk to two trans people about all your questions, anything and everything trans. I am your host today, Arden Hart, and with me is Dr. Ben. What's going on, Dr. Ben?
Hey, what's up? We're here. We're queer. We're tired.
Get
We want to
used
go
to it.
home. Yeah. No, I mean it's the same. We wake up in this hellscape. There's more in the news about whatever, the same logic, the same rhetoric, the same media headlines. Like, it's all recycled day after day after day. It's like, okay, we heard this one last week, what's different about it this time? And usually it's not much, so
Yeah.
we're just here. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I had also recently seen, we kind of talked about this in the pre-show. A lot of the sort of queer news outlets like them and Pink News kind of will repost like old stories sometimes to fearmonger. It's really weird. And recently they've been
Mhm.
hitting hard on the um leak from Pam Bondi about the sort of nihilistic violent extremist act. There's no real new information here, but just saying that, they should set up some sort of tip line and investigate promoters of radical gender ideology and people who attack traditional family values and religion, which feels like code for the hosts of this specific show, if I'm being honest. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's real goofy out there. And to be clear, I also don't attack traditional family values. I attack systems that make it so that's the only option people have. If you want traditional family values, good, go do it. I want people to make choices, informed choices, and live whatever life they want for themselves. Um, it's
Yeah.
just so goofy. Uh, so today, y'all, if any oppositional callers want to call in, please definitely do that. Although I'm not going to be saving lines specifically for um oppositional callers today. This is going to be the last TACIS before Christmas. We're not going to have a show next week because it's Christmas. And the following week is New Year's Day. So we might not have a show with I'm not completely sure on what the plan is for that. So I just want to let you guys know this may be the last show of the year. And if so, well, this is definitely the last show of the year because New Year's Day is
Mhm.
January 1st. Um, so yeah, I just kind of wanted to also open up the floor for you guys. If anyone is like feeling nervous going home for the holidays, if you're already home for the holidays, anything like that. Just kind of wanted to be community focused today and yeah, open up the floor for you guys. So those lines are open. The number is 720 619 There's also a web link in the description if you are outside of the US or Canada. You can call in with that. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Shit's crazy out there, man.
Yeah, but some positive things, at least within here. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but rumor has it that the mug challenge is coming back this year. So get ready for some really fun mug designs. Save like a little bit of your Christmas money, set it aside for this, because I've I've only seen mine and like one other, but they look pretty fun. I think this will be a fun year for the mugs.
I'm excited. I feel like last year with the mugs, I tried to do too complicated. I tried to do like almost illustrations for everyone and turning those all into vector designs and getting them all up in time. It was a huge mess and did not work out well. And I wasn't happy with a lot of the work. But this year, I tried to simplify it and kind of go with like stylized text on a lot of them. And that seemed to be what kind of mugs you guys liked the most last year. So there's a few hosts who did give me their own graphics that they made that they were like, here, you put this on a mug. And so that's fair. But for most of them, they are just kind of like, stylized text on like some sort of design there. So more graphic design oriented, less illustrative. Um, yeah, and those are really cool. I'm excited for those. Excited to show you guys all of those. But yeah, so if you guys don't know, we're gonna get into calls here in just a little bit. First, we're gonna talk about last week's poll, and we're gonna give you guys a new poll for this week. So let's see, where are my buttons? Here we go. So last week's poll was, is it realistically possible to enforce anti-trans bathroom bans? with 9.5 thousand votes. 93% said no, and 7% said yes. I'm gonna be honest, I did not look through the comments to see who said yes. This poll comes from, if you guys didn't hear, oops, somebody said my voice is a little quiet. Is it quiet for you? I think everything
It's
looks
quieter than the other audio, at
okay.
least,
Let me
but I can hear it fine. But
crank it up a little bit. Everything, all the levels look fine, or they're where they normally are, but maybe I'm just speaking quietly. I don't know. Um, so if you guys don't know, this was rooted in a protest that was put forward by Mama Mephistopheles, who we had on the show a little over a month ago. Um, she and a group of activists went into the Capitol building and did a sort of bathroom sit-in kind of scenario where they went into the bathrooms to show that there is no enforcement mechanism in place for Texas bill, I think it's SB 8, that is supposed to ban access of trans people from bathrooms in federally owned or state-owned facilities. Now, individuals are not supposed to be held liable for these violations. The institutions are supposed to be held liable for not taking reasonable precautions to prevent males from entering female bathrooms, as they would phrase it. Um, and so what they found when they went is that there was no enforcement mechanism. Nobody was there. They went into the bathrooms. They all did their business. They came out, and then they had a talk about what happened and how there was no enforcement mechanism. And then they agreed they were going to go in again. And this time when they went in, some law enforcement officials, I don't remember exactly what they were. I don't think they were cops, but they showed up and they were checking IDs, only of the women's restroom, mind you. There were trans men at this protest too. They didn't have anyone checking their IDs when they went into the men's restroom, only the women. And because several of them had gender marker changes, they were allowed to go into the women's room. So like even the enforcement mechanism that they invented on the spot and applied on the spot was not sufficient to the actual stated goal of the law. And to kick it all off, as they were leaving, one of the protesters was actually detained and put in handcuffs briefly, which again doesn't make any sense because there's not supposed to be any punishments that the individual can be held liable for. That's supposed to be just the facilities and institutions. So yeah, I don't. The whole thing kind of was supposed to be, exposing of how impossible these are to enforce. But I don't know, Ben, do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know if you saw that or anything like that.
yeah, I didn't see how that went down, but it sounds like exactly what we would expect with this kind of bathroom ban. Like, and with every argument we give against people who think that boiling womanhood down to certain anatomical features or to a gender marker or whatever is so insufficient. Um, because I mean, we're seeing this happen here. We're seeing like how much do we have to move the goalpost in order to exclude people we don't want and include people we do want, and those criteria are not going to be like fair across the board, even for all cis people. So
Right.
it's demonstrating exactly what our points have been with every single episode of this show. Um, there's not a whole lot new to say about this other than like we told you so. Like this isn't going to work out the way that you think it is.
Yeah, no, 100%. So this week's poll is kind of a refrain from one we did a few weeks ago. So excuse me for the redundancy for some of you. Um, we're going to get into it more in depth in a little bit, but this week's poll is: do you trust the findings of RFK Jr.'s HHS report on trans kids will be rooted in good science? So that's a yes or no poll going up in the chat right now. You guys can participate in that, and then we're going to talk about it in a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So if you are ready, Ben, we do have a couple callers on the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about we talk to Jamie? Pronouns he, him in the UK, wants to talk about trans folks in sports and what his position on that is. So Jamie. Oops, there we go. Jamie, you are live on the line with Arden and Ben. Talk to us. What's going on? Oop, hold on. I might have. Let's try that again. Sorry, this is for the clip. Starting over again. Jamie, he, him from the UK. You are live on the line with Arden and Ben. What's going on?
How are you guys?
Hey,
There
doing
we go.
all right. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So, trans in sports. Uh, what are your opinions?
Uh, oof. It's kind of broad. Generally, I want there to be maximum inclusion and maximum fairness. So if there's going to be some sort of policy that restricts access to sports, I think so long as it applies to everyone, trans and cis equally, that's probably okay. Although I am dubious about the nature in which women's competition gets regulated and men's competition does not. Um, but by and large, I think I'm generally okay with that kind of approach. But it would also have to come down to specific policy, whether I'm okay with it or not. You know, Ben, do you have different thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's kind of
Hmm.
where I sit as
Okay.
well. And as for like the just the brief mention of the inequality in the regulation, I just recently did a show covering the whole peptide industry, like the injectable peptide thing, and it's wild that like
Right.
it's literally doping like a growth hormone analog, and somehow like RFK Jr., Joe Rogan, and a bunch of those people are all in favor of people using that. But somehow
Hmm.
doping isn't a problem for men's sports. Like they should be allowed to do that, but don't you dare let a trans woman in women's sports. Like, okay.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
are your thoughts, Jamie?
I'm sort of on the opinion that there shouldn't be any restrictions other than skill and weight categories, of course.
Yeah, I think I can probably agree with
Would
that
there
for the
be?
most part. Um, do you want to elaborate? Go ahead.
Uh, I think that's pretty much how I feel. I mean, I see a lot of even in these days, you have a lot of people who say women shouldn't be allowed in sorry, men shouldn't be allowed in women's uh, sports. Women shouldn't play football, or for you guys, soccer, um, in uh, in those games. But I just want it all to be mixed up. Women, men, all of it mixed up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar. I honestly, I would prefer to see a world where we valued competitions that equally valued typical male and female traits rather than what we really have is a culture where we very often venerate sports that favor male athletes in a pretty significant way. Because again, there's nobody here, no trans activist is denying that there are trends in athletic performance between, typical assigned male people and assigned female individuals. Um, but yeah, I by and large, I'm just kind of like it feels just very strange to me that we have things where it's like, oh, even cis women, again, if we're going to have rules, let's apply them to both equally. But now there's going to be also cis women who are getting denied the ability to participate in like Olympic sports because they may have high testosterone levels in their bloodstream when that could just be the way their body is, which seems really weird and unfair to me that like there's a ceiling on how good you can be in women's sports. But for men, there is no ceiling. Like
Yeah,
you can just whatever genetic anomaly makes you the best at something is just a accepted gift, like, oh, how fortunate for him that he has this, natural production of a hormone that, gets the lactic acid out of his muscles so he can activate them more easily or whatever the fuck it is about Michael Phelps that people
yeah,
say. I'm not a sports person, by the way. Nobody here is convinced is under the impression that I know anything about sports. I'm coming at this more from a philosophical perspective on fairness and inclusion. Um, And all of this is, by the way, we're talking about like the college level, professional athlete level. I think almost none of that is really relevant when we're talking about high schoolers and younger. We're at that age,
Mm.
we're talking about really community engagement, right? We're talking about life skills building, teamwork, learning how to lose and support each other and like work through those frustrations. Like these are really community self-development oriented sort of efforts in my estimation. Some colleges, some high schools, maybe
Right.
it's a little bit more serious. They maybe have some sort of reputation or program for more professional like athleticism. For example, like my nephew um, is a like hockey prodigy, and he goes to a school where he gets to like really, really do that, and he's not even in high school yet. Um, I suspect he will be,
Mm.
kind of in one of those special situations. But yeah, I just think these things need to be handled with a little bit more nuance and on like case by case basis. Whereas what the media has trained the American people to ask for and what politicians have been proposing as solutions to these things are blanket solutions that negatively impact trans and cis people, don't really promote fairness. They don't really protect women. They're just kind of bigoted policies overall and like not really informed on facts or evidence, like or science or anything like that. Ben, you look like you're ready to jump in.
Yeah, and it all comes down to misogyny and reinforcing gender stereotypes, which if you listen to a lot of the gender criticals, they will say, "Oh, well, this is about removing gender stereotypes," and the claim that trans people just want to enforce gender stereotypes, which is not at all true. Especially in this case, where, like Arden was saying, if you have this ceiling on the performance of women, and any woman that exceeds that performance standard is no longer a woman, like that person's too good to be a woman. What are you saying about women in that case?
Mm.
Like women can't be successful. Women can't uh, like have a biological advantage. They can't have elite performance. And like an argument that Arden has gone to a lot recently that I think is completely valid, like the other social inequalities of sports and like how do they keep perpetuating these stereotypes? Like they clearly, there clearly is a motivation to keep women as inferior to men in sports, and so
Absolutely.
definitely a lot of that is something to be considered. But then, something else, if we look at sports culture, especially in the United States, um, where, I mean, going into a less sport related topic, we have arguments against trans people, especially against trans minors, saying that, oh well, they shouldn't be having these irreversible procedures or irreversible medical treatments. But at the same time, in sports, it is okay to put a child, like a middle schooler or a high schooler, into tackle football, where they're getting severe head
Yeah,
contact, they're getting concussions, they're getting irreversible uh, like neurological risk. And so somehow that is something that is okay, and that should be like almost worshipped in a lot of high schools really, really value their tackle football teams. I can't imagine the country would be very
yeah,
happy if there was suddenly a ban on tackle football in for minors under 18, but that is a huge consent risk. Like they cannot consent to the type of damage that they're going to have later on. But it is such a masculine thing. Like it fits that masculine stereotype. It fits the thing of uh, like girls can't play this sport because they're too small, they're too weak, etc. Um, but I think a lot of that just shows kind of how messed up sports as an industry kind of are in the United States, and a lot of it does come down to those gender stereotypes.
yeah. I was watching an interview, well, a on the line you did with Josie, and you had Andrew online. Delightful creature. Um, and he was talking about what was it? He could you're talking about how wrestling, and that he could take anyone on, no matter whether they were women or whatever. And you were talking about jiu-jitsu. Having come from a jiu-jitsu background, I can say that I have fought against on the mat women smaller than me, as you do when you're on the line, as you do when you're on the mat, and it's I've been panned, absolutely battered, but they
Yep.
have different skill sets. I was realizing that they can do something simply because they are smaller than me.
Yep.
And so they
100%.
are able to do things, different things.
Yeah, like that's how my experience has been in jujitsu. And yeah, like when people think that sports are one type of skill set, that is absolutely not true. There's a variety of sports, and like you're saying, like a good athlete will use the advantages that they have in order to play the game that they want to play, and things that people don't consider being an advantage. I remember being on the mat with bigger guys who just don't know how to close the space between them and the floor. Like, if you got somebody smaller, small things like the amount of space between your hips and the mat is huge. Like, if I can get my knee into like a small
Yeah,
space, I can win the round. And people really don't consider that it's not all about strength, and even strength can be a detriment a lot of times, especially if you're a brand new
yeah,
uh, athlete and you only have strength and you rely on that. You're not developing the strategy, you're not developing the technique early on, and so you're going to have to make up that deficit later. So in some ways, not having that crutch can be a huge advantage. And I think that's where I know when we were talking to Andrew, um, one of those weeks, he was going on about how, you know, any woman is going to lose to a man in MMA. And like, I don't think you understand the sport if that's what you're thinking. It sounds like a person at the bar who insists that they know everything that they're saying. You're like, you've never done jujitsu a day in your life. You've never done
mm,
boxing a day in your life. I can tell, because someone that's done the sport is probably not going to say stuff like that. Or maybe this person does the sport, but is like brand new and hasn't been humbled yet. So yeah, I think we're
yeah,
in agreement on
yeah.
all of that.
Uh, I I mean, rugby. There's different positions in rugby. The fly half is always going to be small, um, and there's a ex-Ferns woman, Portia Woodman. Um, she is an absolute beast. She's Maori, but she's a beast. I wouldn't be anyone. I wouldn't want to be a guy on the pitch up against her. Um,
Yeah.
but I think it would only take, I don't know, maybe 5 years before the floor, if you like, the floor of skill and everything else evened out. And the trans, the women, the men, all of those in the same pitch, all together in sports, would just there wouldn't be any difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to probably be like differences at which sports, men and women tend to on average succeed in the most, because there are physiological differences that sex differences do affect, but it's the problem is when we essentialize and we say therefore men are always better at physical things, and it's just like that is the not true thing. Like you guys have been pointing out, like, being smaller on average can provide an advantage in certain areas. I know women tend to, I think it's like fast twitch muscle fibers, they tend to have more of,
Mhm.
they tend to be more flexible on average. And so, like, there's different elements of sport and athleticism that can favor, I mean, obviously, like, much in the way that people tend to say, like, oh, male tennis is a different sport than female tennis. Famously, Serena Williams said something along those lines. I think a lot of people would also contend that like female gymnastics is a completely different sport because of the like biological differences that are on average. But it's when we start to say like, therefore, we're not going to like. I think we could. So how am I trying to approach this? I think it would there would be a really cool world in which we blow open those doors and suddenly women are occasionally dominating in what was typically a male dominated space, and maybe men could occasionally win like a gymnastics thing, and we could just celebrate athleticism across the board. But yeah, I think unfortunately
Yeah.
women overwhelmingly, and particularly women of color, by the way, you'll notice that like most of the women who get snapped for having like naturally high testosterone levels in like athletic in the Olympics are overwhelmingly women of color. So it's just like there's also a racism element in there too. That's really unfortunate and really frustrating. But um I overall this is one of my issues that I hate talking about the most because I just don't personally care about sports, but like from a philosophical position, like 100%, I think like we could very easily, if we really wanted to, advocate for a world where there is maximum inclusion and equality, including of trans people, and maximum fairness. And as long as we're applying those standards equally, I know there's some controversy around the Olympics stating that they were going to um, not technically ban all trans women from sports, but that they were going to have strict levels that said, like, you know, if you are trans or if you're cis, if you have this amount of testosterone per nanomole and nanomoles per deciliter in your bloodstream, you can't compete. It's hard for me to object to those things because they're not completely, you know, facially discriminating against trans people. It's kind of equally across the board. I do think there is an element of disparate impact to consider as well, but honestly, I think there are more pressing issues for women's fairness and competition, which we talked about earlier, you know, a little bit like funding. I'm also interested in like, how are we going to do more to protect female athletes from predatory doctors and health physicians like Larry Nassar and people like that, who, you know, have famously been was abusing girls for like decades. I think those seem like more pressing issues to me than trans people. When trans people, there was no more than, it was 10 athletes in the NCAA out of like 150,000 or something like that. I don't remember the exact number. So if anyone in chat wants to specify, or if somebody listening, I recommend you go look it up. Don't just take my word for it. I'm quite confident on the 10 athletes in the NCAA. That's the American College Athletics Association. But I don't remember how much the total athletes were. Regardless, if trans people are like 1% of the population and 10 of us have made it into like professional college sports, that is like 0.01% of 1% of the population. So like, what are we really talking about here? Is this really how we want to be spending our time and energy as people while there is, you know, a global climate crisis incoming? There, you know, inequality is rising across the board globally, like fascism and authoritarianism are on the rise globally. It's just, it seems really silly to be spending our time and energy on 10 or 11, somebody says in chat, NCAA athletes. It just, I don't understand why.
Like the real problem clearly is the amount of testosterone in people playing chess. Like that's the real heavy hitter.
That's crazy.
Well, with that, Jamie,
that's crazy. That's testosterone in chess. Who would have thought?
Yeah, testosterone definitely improves, like unfairly makes you a better chess player. So you gotta just kick men out of chess. Why don't we?
Chatter says that it was
kick all the men
out of 500,000 athletes in the NCAA. So that, you know, more perspective on the proportions there. But anyway, Jamie, we are going to move on so we can get to some other callers, but I do appreciate you calling in and sharing your thoughts. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Bye-bye.
You as well.
All righty. Lines are packed. We got full lines for the first time in a while. We're gonna hit one more call and then we will go back to the poll. But for now, we are going to talk to Patrick. He, him in New York says if transgenders is actually the sex they identify as. Wants to know if, let's just bring in Patrick. Patrick, he, him from New York. You are live on the line with Arden and Ben. What's going on? Talk to us.
I was wondering about transgender people.
Okay. What are you wondering about?
So I think they have because of their brains, they identify with the opposite sex of how they're physically born. But I think that when they get the surgeries, it's mostly if they get a surgery, they only try to make it look like the sex they want to identify as.
Okay.
What does that even mean?
Yeah. I just, okay, so that's a good start, Patrick. Is there like a question in there? Because I don't really, so far I've written down what you said, and I think they have like their brains, they identify with the opposite sex of how they're physically born. When they get the surgery, they only make it look like the sex they want. There's no question there. So is there a question that you're bringing to us?
But they're not if a male got a surgery to look like a female, I think that they're just trying to appear as the sex that they want. For example, like a male, they got a surgery as a transgender female, like they still can't have kids.
Yeah, Patrick.
Sure.
Patrick, this
give
is a
birth.
thing called Patrick. Are you aware of limitations within medical science? Or do you think that medical science has everything figured out right now or not learning anything new?
Well, I'm saying I think according to some legal definitions, they don't count as real females if they can't have
No,
kids.
Patrick, so I'm gonna jump in here. So I don't really care about the legal definitions for purposes of medical procedures, right? So we're talking about two different things. And when we're talking about medical procedures, we are going to refer to medical definitions. And as far as the procedures that you can get to medically transition, yes, for the most part, a lot of those surgeries are cosmetic as of right now because we don't have the technology yet to allow for like complete reproductive function in somebody who's trans. And that's something that people are working on. They're looking at uterine transplants. They're looking at other options. Another example is with phalloplasty, or the construction of a phallus. We don't have a great mechanism to induce blood flow to cause an erection. And that's the same for cisgender people, the people who are not trans. If they have an issue with getting erections, they also would get something like a penis pump to kind of help them simulate an erection. So this isn't something unique to trans people. This is just medical science doesn't have a great way to allow some of these functions to happen for trans people.
I also think, Patrick, it's important to note that trans people aren't saying we're cis. Like when I get bottom surgery, I'm not going to be going around telling people that I am cisgender and that I am identical to a cisgender woman. I am a transgender woman who got bottom surgery to have a vagina, but that doesn't mean I'm the same as a cis woman. Nobody's saying that. So I don't really understand what your concern is.
Well, because I thought they're trying to turn into the sex that they want to be.
We're medically transitioning and using the methods that we have available to us to improve our quality of life. And that may include, like Ben was talking about, phalloplasty or vaginoplasty. And sure, you can say that like there's an essence in where, yes, there is like a attempt to make our bodies more closely resemble like typical female biology or typical male biology for purposes of like alleviating gender dysphoria. But the goal is not to become like indistinguishable from a cisgender person. It's to be more comfortable in our body.
Oh, all right.
You would also be incorrect on the matter of whether or not we are technically legally males or females. You may be right soon because the Trump administration has been trying to put in efforts to change how we legally describe things, but still in many states you are able to legally access a gender marker change, which would describe you legally as whatever gender you put forward to have it say. So like for me, for example, my license says female. Um, and to me, that's not a matter of me wanting to be indistinguishable from a female. That's a matter of practicality and privacy. So like I have to present my ID when I go to the airport, right? To the TSA agent, I have to show them my ID to show that I am who I say I am. And by allowing me to have an F on my gender marker on my ID, all that does is protect my privacy so that I don't need the agent to know that I was assigned male at birth, because that doesn't convey any useful information to them and may put me at risk of discrimination. So, like, legally, we may define ourselves as male or female, but that doesn't really mean much. That is usually just utilitarian in nature, right? It just serves a purpose practically in society to be able to indicate that you are a male or female on some sort of document or form. But like, that doesn't necessarily mean that people are saying like, we are ontologically indistinguishable from cisgender women or cisgender men.
Well, on the internet, it says a female is defined as an individual whose biological reproductive system is designed to produce ova.
So I would completely reject that
Yep. So
definition because it
yeah.
uses the word designed. Bodies aren't
And
designed,
also
bodies just exist.
and also this idea that everything is organized around producing ova. Like, what happens for women who don't produce ova?
Well, I don't know.
So are they not women if they don't produce ova?
Well, yeah, I think they are, but
Right. So that's clearly not the
So
factor that matters in describing someone as a woman or a female, right?
and with those arguments of saying that there are other body parts that organize around producing of an ova, there are a lot of those characteristics don't have anything to do with the reproductive system as far as development or function. So a lot of these arguments are just a way to not clearly define what people mean. And so it can get really messy in that way. So if you say that a woman is somebody that produces ova, and then we say, well, but not everybody does, then the next move people will say is that, well, there are other characteristics that are organized around producing ova. But what that tells me is that you can't narrow down any of those traits that actually meet your definition of woman.
And
so if you're going to adhere to such a strict definition, you have to be able to keep a consistent definition for every example. And that seems like it's difficult to do from your framework.
yeah, I think this is part of the reason why like those definitions, Patrick, are really useful for like biologists who are, let's say, going out into the field somewhere that hasn't been explored very deeply, and they're trying to find a way to categorize new species they encounter. Those definitions are really useful for them to start to understand species on a population level. But the problem is when you try to apply definitions like that to individuals and say, oh, well, you're not a female because your biology isn't organized around the production of ova, well, it starts to fall apart pretty quickly because, as Ben's pointing out, there are people who we would both agree are uncontroversially women who wouldn't meet that definition. And furthermore, I don't think anyone's biology is designed around anything. People just happen to exist with ova or with, testicles or something like that. So I don't really value this definition. I think there's a place for definitions like that for biologists. And again, when we're talking about population level statistics, there is some utility in thinking of things in that framework. But when you start to apply it to individuals to like revoke their identity, like, oh, well, you can't be a woman because you don't meet this narrow definition of female or male, it starts to become nonsensical when you actually be try to take the definition seriously.
There's a definition that says a biological woman is someone someone who is female at birth.
See, that's nonsensical because what traits are you using to define somebody as female?
Well, yeah, probably if they came out with a vagina and then if they had a penis and it's a boy, I guess.
So, Patrick, did you know that some people can be born with both of those organs?
Yeah.
So that's not a good framework to use then, because if we have people who can be outside of those criteria or have overlapping criteria, then that would kind of defeat your definition, right?
Yeah.
So what else do we have? Like, it seems like you can't pin down a consistent definition for what would include somebody as a woman and what would exclude somebody as a woman. So I think you have a lot of work that you need to do on your end before you make your point further.
Well, I mean, if most of their parts was designed like a woman, even if they had a part that was like, like.
Well, see, we already said designed isn't. So, yeah. Patrick, we already reject the design concept, but like I said, so there are multiple different organs that develop along different pathways, and some of them are completely separate pathways. So the pathway that you develop a penis or vagina is separate from developing a uterus or a prostate, etc. So if somebody were to have both a penis and a uterus, how would you define them by their sex?
Well, I mean, if it looks like a man, like it was born to look mostly like a boy.
So Patrick, I'm not going to take that seriously. No, Patrick. I'm sorry. If it looks like it and it was born mostly, that's not serious. Like you aren't actually trying to put forward a serious discussion here or have like a real conversation about the nature of trans people and where we fall. You just want to maintain your old worldview, and that's fine. You're entitled to maintain your old worldview, but nothing that I'm saying conflicts with reality or science in any way. And it seems like you have a lot of confused misperceptions about what trans people think and believe about our own bodies, what we're advocating for writ large with how to think about these things. So this doesn't seem very serious to me. I encourage you to go do a lot of research on this stuff. And research doesn't mean just Googling, by the way. I mean, academic peer-reviewed sources, like get me a PMID and like a paragraph number, and then we can talk a little further. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that I am interested in it. I'm just learning about it.
Sure. But like this feels a little bit like when a little boy like poops in the toilet and says, "Mommy, come look, I did a good job," and wants to show me. Like, okay, you are at stage 1 of this process. So I'm not impressed. Okay. I appreciate that you may be interested in it, but your approach to this so far has been like really, really weak. I think there are actually some decently strong arguments on your side that I think there are refutations to, by the way. I wouldn't be on my side of this issue if I didn't think that it was the correct one. But there are stronger arguments that you don't seem to have even driven past yet. So I would definitely encourage you to go away and think about this a little more and come back. Okay, Patrick?
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Yeah.
I just so frustrating. Yeah. People have a really hard time understanding the difference between definitions, population level statistics, and like individuals, and how those things don't always correlate. And that doesn't mean that were rejecting, like, it's very confused about everything. All right, so we're gonna hit that poll real quick before we take the rest of our calls. The lines are jam packed today, so
Yeah.
we've got plenty of people to get to. Excuse me, sorry, I had a little burp hiccup thing at the same time. I didn't want to do it out loud like I did that one time when I was in the production chair. Okay.
That was great.
Oh my God, so embarrassing. All right. So this week's poll is: do you trust the findings of RFK Jr.'s HHS report on trans kids? Do you trust that the findings will be rooted in good science? So 98% in our chat poll say no, and 2% said yes. I saw one person being like, well, it's the HHS. Why wouldn't I believe it? And like, the part of the reason why is because almost every single author has been tied, their credibility as an author of a scientific journal has been compromised. You have people like members of the Manhattan Institute, which is like a conservative think tank. You have people who have been a philosopher who's not a clinician, has no training in medical science. You have an individual who is technically an endocrinologist, but has spent the last few years of their life getting flown around from state to state as a professional individual to testify at hearings of bills in states to revoke trans care. So he's like a professional anti-trans lobbyist, essentially. So the authors are severely compromised. There's also things like they cite the rapid onset gender dysphoria study, which I genuinely am surprised. Even the CAS review and others don't really treat ROGD as a serious phenomena. Rapid onset gender dysphoria was a phenomena described in a study that ended up being retracted by the journal, and a sort of tag-along attempt at doing it again, but better, also got retracted, primarily because of them sourcing their data from anti-trans parent forums. So, like, these are not reliable respondents. They are not representative of the actual population. They're not people who, like, the patients weren't interviewed to describe this phenomena. The parents of the patients who already have a preconceived bias about the topic were the ones who were interviewed. They cite that in the first few pages. Several American institutions like the American Psychological Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, refused to, or one of them refused to peer review. The other that peer reviewed said that the conclusions that were reached were not like super supported. I'll see if I can find the exact quote here. The report's underlying methodology lacks sufficient transparency and clarity for its findings to be taken at face value. So these are just a few of the reasons that I don't put a lot of stock in this. Also, RFK Jr. did a address to the nation today, where they basically talked about this report, essentially, and they were kind of announcing some new restrictions that they're going to be placing on gender affirming care for minors, including they're removing gender dysphoria from being considered a disability, which Biden did to try to protect us from discrimination. So they're removing that classification. They were also talking about they are going to be issuing like warnings to people who manufacture breast binders, specifically for trans people, and they're going to be like telling them they can't do that. I guess it wasn't super clear exactly what they're doing. They said like issuing warnings, I think was what the word was. They are obviously have been attempting to stop Medicaid from covering gender affirming care for minors. So, you know, particularly affecting poor trans kids, not just like trans kids writ large, which is super fucked up. There was a lot of misinformation in this talk. They talked about, they said that this was going to cost $250 million to the taxpayer over 10 years, which is a microscopic amount of the budget, mind you. I don't have specific figures on hand, but I can imagine that many other more controversial treatments are given much more money over that same period. They also did things where they said things like, oh, from 2016 to 2019, gender affirming surgeries on minors tripled. And when they say tripled, that sounds really scary because they don't give you context. But when you find out that out of like, what, we're 1% of the population of 300 million. The Journal of the American Medical Association, in the same year that they said these numbers tripled, said that 0.002% of kids 15 to 17 were getting these procedures, which means that this number tripled from like maybe around 90 to like 260-ish or something like that. I just did some quick math. So those numbers may not be perfect, but that's about what those numbers would be, more or less. So there's just an attempt to really frame all of these things without context to make them sound really scary. And unfortunately, it's been really working, them hammering on this. Lots of polls are showing that even Democrats polled support these kinds of things. So it's really sad to see. But I do want to say one more thing before I turn it over to Ben, which is just that like they can take away our healthcare. They can do a lot to make our lives really fucking difficult, but they cannot get rid of us. You can't make me stop being who I am. No amount of talk therapy, no amount of abuse, no amount of incarceration, no amount of forced medical care that they could hypothetically put on us. And by the way, this isn't planned. This is just me being like, out of all the things in the bucket that you can imagine that they could do, none of it will stop you from being who you are. We are not telling people, as Chloe Cole said in this talk, that, if you like boys' toys and you like hanging out with your brothers, that makes you a boy. I want the patient to tell us who they are. And sometimes when you look back, you can say, oh yeah, I can see the way in which I interface with society was maybe more like a boy than like a girl. But those things aren't in and of themselves what people are saying makes you trans. These are just ways that trans people can come to reflect on our own experience and understand ourselves. But this is all about being a system that is patient-led. We want the patient to tell us what their goals are, where they want to end up, and to help them get there in the healthiest and safest way possible. We want age-appropriate, evidence-based medical interventions that improve the patient's quality of life. That's what I advocate for. And I'm not a doctor, by the way. And I don't think we're giving medical advice on this channel at all. But that is the policy prescriptions that I advocate for. Ben, did you have thoughts?
Yeah, and that's all very well said. And I just want to address like the comments that, well, why wouldn't we listen to the HHS? Like, if that's really your response, you have not been paying attention to the broader picture, because we know the garbage that RFK Jr. is doing with the HHS, and like with the, especially right now, the CDC, the FDA, etc. We have the receipts from him specifically saying that the change to the vaccine schedule was because he told the CDC to put those things on the website. Like, we have sticky fingers going in and changing guidelines all willy-nilly based on his particular opinions. And mind you, this is the same guy that said people shouldn't be taking medical advice from me. Then why are you giving it? Then why are you trying to make medical policy? Why aren't you listening to the people who were in the CDC? Why did you get rid of all those people if you felt that you weren't the one to be making these? Literally, the only reason he said that previously was to cover his own ass. But he does want to influence healthcare. The CDC is no longer reliable. The HHS in general is no longer reliable. So where I used to say, hey, these are good resources to go to, they are not. And so if you are looking for better resources, look to organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, look to the actual medical organizations that have expert staffing, that have the evidence-based guidelines, because that's really where you're going to get reliable info. And I will say on that, like, it can be difficult to find that information kind of out there on the internet, but these organizations, like the AAP, the AFP, the AMA, etc., they have oftentimes a lot of like, they have their own websites with talking points on it that kind of address this frequently asked questions, that address the common issues. So if you're not sure where to go for that, I would go there. And I know the AAP has like a whole separate like affiliated website. I don't remember the name of it, but I think you can get there through there. But they have like a huge Q&A section about vaccine myths, and you can go through and they have their citations listed, and you can review them. So, and those are not hidden by a paywall. Like everything that the AAP is saying, not hidden by a paywall. You can access it. You can share that information. So yeah, unfortunately, we cannot rely on the HHS, and so that pretty much sums up my answer. I don't trust RFK Jr. as far as I can drop kick him, and and I don't think anybody else should either. So
Yeah. I think it's also worth noting that, like, even if we were to accept their entire premise that the evidence for gender affirming care for minors is weak, and I don't think it's uniquely weak, because I think that's what really matters. Studying children in medicine is difficult across the board. You can't really ethically conduct a study that evaluates kids according to the, alleged gold standard of like a double blind placebo trial or something, right? There's reasons that we don't do double blind placebo, and that we do usually comparative to the current standard of care, and see like, oh, does this work better than the current standard of care at improving quality of life or something like that? Because then everyone's getting treatment at the very least. But it's important to note that their recommendations are largely talk therapy, psychotherapy. And this is sort of the like watchful waiting approach, right? Like, let's not rush the kids. Let's tell them to appreciate and love their body as it is. It's functionally conversion therapy. It's therapy with the goal that you will hopefully stay cisgender, which has been proven to have lots of negative side effects, and mostly just gives people a sense of shame that they're not just loving their body enough, when that's not really what's happening in a transgender brain to begin with. But moreover, if we're going to say that the evidence for gender affirming care isn't good enough, the evidence for watchful waiting exploratory therapy is far weaker than the evidence for gender affirming care for minors. And again, we're talking age appropriate, evidence-based medication, puberty blockers used within the guidelines no longer than 2 years without the introduction of cross-sex hormones or the resuming of your natal puberty. We're talking about, before that, nothing more than social transition options, which are also being made illegal in some places, or attempts are there to make it illegal in some places, which basically criminalizes, like, if a boy not transgender wants to wear a dress, is that going to be a problem? Like, it's very complicated. And all this to say that this is sort of like we were talking about in the first call with sports. This is an attempt by lawmakers to come up with a one-stop shop solution to the transgender problem with kids, and to just ban it entirely. But as has been the case historically, with every time they just try to unilaterally ban something, that's usually not the best approach. Usually you need a much more nuanced approach where you're, not getting in between medical professionals and the parents who know the kid best to make the most informed decision about what's going to help the kid have the best chance at having a good quality of life. And that doesn't mean that mistakes won't be made sometimes, or that, like, the one thing I agree with them all on is that there probably should be some sort of insurance coding system for detransitioners in the system, where they can access care to, get their bodies in whatever way is going to make them feel the best. I completely support that decision. Like, I think if people feel that way, they should have access to the tools to live their best life. I want maximum well-being for maximum people possible. So that's where I approach this conversation from. But anyway, that was last week's poll. Thank you guys for participating. If you didn't get in on the chat and you want to participate, that poll is up over on our community tab. So you can go leave a response under the posts on our channel and leave a comment for us. Let us know what you think. All right.
And getting into the next call, I might need to get up for a sec. So can you start this next one? I'll be back in just a second.
Yep.
No problem.
All right. So let's see who we got next. We have Alexandria in Belgium has a question about ethics and infighting in trans rights discourse. So, oops, I hit the button. There we go. Alexandria, You are live in the line with Arden and Dr. Ben soon, but just me for now. What's going on?
Hi, Arden. Nice to meet you. I was wondering about just some pragmatic stuff
Okay.
because as a trans person, I struggle quite a bit with the idea of you're not allowed to fuck up, definitely not in public, because you are then seen as a representative of the trans community. And so
Sure.
if you fuck up, now you're making the community look bad, and I don't really know how to manage that. And like, this isn't I don't mean it in like a talking to my psychologist kind of way, but like just what are your thoughts about this? Because there's a lot of infighting in the queer community. And I just, because of the volatile nature and our rights being taken away, it seems like we have less space to publicly disagree. And I don't mean disagreements in terms of like whether or not trans rights are human rights, but disagreements in the sense that every single topic has disagreements.
Sure.
Hi, Dr. Ben. Nice to meet you. Has disagreements when it comes to like at the edge of theory.
Sure.
And so, like personally, like one of the things I have is like, am I a woman? I don't fucking know, man. That's an ontological thing. I don't know if I want to make ontological claims. Like it's different.
Sure.
But then it's
Have you
like,
seen?
well, if I say this, is it going to be like, see, look, even they don't think they're women, you know?
Have you seen that? Have you seen that meme where it's like talking about gender with cis people, and it's like the adult helping the child like put the shapes in, and then it's like talking about gender with trans people, and it's like the philosophers or whatever. There's definitely like the conversation is definitely different with how we have to approach it with cis people than we do with trans people. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to get into super heavy nuance with cis people who don't really understand that gender isn't that simple of a conversation. But like with trans people, it's definitely easier and sometimes fun to get into that. Like, like even adding some like more basic things like gender fluidity, which seems to throw cis people for a loop, but talk about like how dynamic gender identity can be and all that. Like I think some of those nuances are really fun to discuss with trans people, and definitely I can see that there may be a lot of disagreements. Like I've disagreed with trans people on certain very kind of minute details and stuff. But yeah, it's a case
We all
where I
have
think it
on this
depends
channel.
on what the yeah, I think it depends on which particular issue we're talking about. And there's definitely a line of where will I like what is worth talking to a cis person that doesn't understand versus like what is worth just keeping this within our own community. And it's not that like I dislike people for certain things, like even discussions about pronouns and like utility of neopronouns and all that stuff. Like we can have all the disagreements all day and it's not really going to impact our kind of internal discussion. But yeah, I see your point where people outside the community might hear some of our internal discussions and think, oh well, they're not actually serious about this. Well, no, it's just we're handling you with kid gloves. You're not ready for this next level of nuanced conversation.
Yeah, that was the whole conversation with Patrick. I do want to add that I think I don't want you to ever feel like it's your responsibility to assuage the fears of cis society, if that makes sense. And what I mean is like, if you say, "Oh, am I actually a woman though?" and if some like government goes, "Oh, see, they don't even think they're women. Now we don't have to call them women," and undermines all of trans healthcare, like that wasn't your fault at any stage of the process. You were having a reasonable conversation and thought and wanted to like voice that out loud, which I think is so good and healthy. Everything that goes wrong with trans healthcare is the fault of the people in power who put in those restrictions into power. This is the exact same reason why I don't entertain conversations about neopronouns and non-binary people being the reason we've lost favor in society. No. The reason we've lost favor in society is because of conservative administrations and politicians revoking trans healthcare from people. Those are the only people responsible. No trans person having a thought in public is responsible. So I hope you can at least walk away from this being like, okay, I can breathe a little and just kind of like exist and think my thoughts because I'm not responsible for like the downfall of trans people in any way, shape, or form. I mean, like maybe if you like are like trying to go the Chloe Cole route and like buddy up to politicians to destroy trans healthcare, then you'd be responsible in a more direct way. But no, I don't think those things should ever carry the weight of responsibility. But I also like, I think it's fully okay to have those conversations. Like for me, I think philosophically, whether or not trans women are women is a much easier position to defend than whether or not we're female. I know a lot of people want to feel really like it's really important to them to be able to say, I am female, for like trans women, for example. And that I have a harder time personally defending. You'll never catch me saying I am female. You might catch me saying something along the lines of like, I think my biology is now more close to a standard female biology than a standard male biology. But that is very carefully crafted and chosen to avoid directly saying I am female because there's a different sort of like ontological weight to making that sort of claim. Whereas woman and man are like strictly talking about social roles in society. And so like those are so much easier positions to defend from a philosophical lens. But I also agree with you that it's not maybe super easy to defend, and this is kind of to Ben's point, to cis people. Because cis people genuinely like there's just a sort of immunity, like an inoculation to having to think about these sorts of things when society is built for cis people. And so they never have to interface with their gender in a really meaningful way. And trans people, whether you are conservative or progressive or leftist, politically, you have to contend with these things. And so that puts us in a very different position. But I definitely, I hear you. I think you shouldn't, unless you have like a platform with which you are advocating for in front of people, I don't think you should be too concerned. I try to be careful with how I say certain things because I want to make sure that I am doing my best to represent as many of us as possible and as good a light as I can, while still, maintaining my skepticism and my humanism. Like I want to maintain those core principles, but also represent our community well. So there's a balance when you have a public platform, but I also hope that you don't, as an individual, feel like, I don't know, those responsibilities shouldn't be weighing on your shoulders too much. But I understand that they often do.
Well, it's I'm the same in Alexandria that texted you about potentially a rubric for like call quality and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because I was like, yeah, sorry if I blew up your inbox too much.
That's okay.
But it's just like, I feel like I am one fuck up away from hearing that a clip from the show got shared on Libs of TikTok, and now another school has a bomb threat. And it's like, oh, all right, that wasn't the idea.
I hear you. But again, that would be not our fault. That would be Libs of TikTok's fault. And while I think there's what I think you're responding to is that sometimes within the community, there's a tendency for trans folks within the community, if something like that were to happen, to turn to us and be like, wow, why did you say that? If you just kept your mouth shut, Libs of TikTok wouldn't have done this. And it's like, of course they fucking would have. They hate queer people and trans people specifically. Like that is like their whole thing. So like I don't personally, I would not find myself responsible for something like that, even if that were to happen. I'm honestly surprised more of stuff like that hasn't happened yet.
It sounds like a
yeah.
it sounds like a what was she wearing argument. with
Right.
that. It's like, well, but what was the trans person? If the trans person wasn't wearing that, libs of TikTok wouldn't be an asshole. Like, no.
Mhm.
They were already doing those things before the trans person said anything.
Okay. Um, I have a question with regards to you, Arden. You mentioned wanting research and like papers and like numbers of like where to find stuff.
Hmm.
But it is unclear to me where to go for that. Not in terms of research, but like, is that for the call-in show? Is that for NBoss? Is that for emails? Because I've got like 4 textbooks on my desk about like social identity and like object identities and concepts and arguments against the validity of the concept of a concept. And so if you like how much homework
What?
is like expected, because it's going to be like a 2-hour long preamble and defining terms and all of that, and by then the show is done. So I don't know what
I
to do with
mean,
that.
so wait, is this like you preparing for a debate or something? Is that what I'm understanding?
Uh, yes and no. It's just like if you have a position that you call into the show with, like how much homework is expected from, because like I want to do a lot of homework, but I don't think we will have the time for stuff. And is it then
Okay.
better to email it or like have like an NBoss application for something?
So that could be a thing. I don't know if we're going to specifically be doing NBoss super soon. So what I would say is I think the important thing to do is to focus on a very narrow claim or topic. Like let's say gender affirming care for minors is efficacious. That's going to really narrow your scope of what you are trying to advocate for. And um even then that's still pretty broad, but like a genuine tip of advice for when you're trying to defend a claim, excuse me, is to really narrow the focus. And that is going to help you direct your searches a lot. Also, I think this is one of the areas where AI is actually like really great. I would recommend using like Perplexity or something, put it on the deep research mode and have it do a preliminary search for you. That'll get you, you'll make sure you tell it to like only source peer-reviewed academic articles from like PubMed or something, because otherwise it'll occasionally grab like an opinion piece or something, which is super annoying. Um, but definitely, those are some of my first areas of recommendation would be to like really try to limit the scope of what you're trying to like advocate for. But like what you're tapping into is a sort of phenomenon we jokingly talk about here as like the notion of to be a trans activist and to be a progressive activist, you know, to be an atheist activist, you honestly kind of have to be a specialist in like physics, in law, in history, in biology. You have to understand such a vast scope of data because there are so many claims made and so many like thought terminating cliches that are just in the sort of public consciousness that people will pull out when they get backed into certain corners. And so understanding how those things work is really good. But also I'd want to know the context of what kind of conversations you're preparing for, because what we do here and the kind of empirical like support that you're going to be wanting for a proper formal debate is very different from the kind of conversations you're going to be having interpersonally with people in your life. And I don't think it's appropriate to approach people in your life with the same kind of energy and tactics as you would for a discussion like this. So yeah, I think there's a lot of depending factors is kind of where I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it
because I know
depends
the
too on the
call-in
people
show.
you're
Oh,
discussing with. But
because I know the call-in show has like several callers, and it's just that, you know, I just like how much time is appropriate, because I know some of the calls run for an hour, but again, if it's like a niche gender philosophy thing, it's going to take at least an hour, and I just don't know. Like, do I just email
I
you a
think
thing
I,
instead of just jump in with like this paper and this guy and this person wrote this in this time kind of thing?
I think exercise some caution with going too far down the philosophical rabbit hole, because like if we're really talking about the fight for like trans activism, the focus really is on what is useful to help us maintain our rights and gain back rights that we've lost. And number one, like too far into the philosophy weeds, like, yeah, that could be helpful for your own position, like helping you think through your own definitions and um your own philosophical arguments. But too far in the weeds kind of alienates other people most of the time and can limit the discussion about like actionable things. So
Mhm.
it's like, sure, you can have your own, I kind of call it like mental masturbation in a way. Like you can have your own like fun with philosophy, but in terms of like public debates or talking with people about trans rights, I would hesitate to go too far into those weeds, because oftentimes it can just be not very helpful and alienate the audience.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
also I want to add that, like, if you run into a pit trap, like you come here and you realize that you aren't prepared, that should be a good indicator of areas where you need to explore further. And this is part of why I'm like, I don't think you need to prepare for things the way that like Ben and I do to host this show, because I don't know you, Alexandra. Maybe you have a big platform, and you are talking to
No.
people actively, but um, like I think it's better to have a narrow focus. Like a good example is we had Riverboat Jack on like a month ago, and this guy called in, and his point was that you can't trust the academic position on trans rights because the institutions have been captured by organizations, progressive woke organizations. And Jack and I were like, okay, name one. And he couldn't name a single one. He was like, well, I don't have a specific one, but there are several. And I'm like, if there are several, it should be really easy for you to name one off the top of your head, especially if you're going to stake your entire claim on the evidence is not reliable because these institutions are captured. You should be able to demonstrate that, right? So like I think it's kind of a blessing if you kind of get like exposed, like there's a hole in your reasoning, because then that means you can go back and like plug that hole, or maybe you find that no, that is actually just a bad argument. I can't support that position and I need to approach the conversation from a different direction, or like review that belief in its entirety. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have much more advice for you there. If you're trying to get
Mhm.
into sort of like the debate or content creation sphere, it's good to start. And there are several content creators who used to have like big master research docs. They're probably all out of date, because back when this was really big was when like Vosh was really huge, and I don't think he does like
The
debate
horse
anymore.
guy.
Um, the what? Yes, yes.
Uh,
Um, Notwithstanding any personal like
yeah, yeah.
opinions on the guy. I know he used to have like a decent research document. Socked on Left on Twitter. It was as a guy I used to know, and he was really big on Twitter. He had a good research document for a period of time. I think Vice Rhino has a good research document. There's also like the Comprehensive Defense of Trans People thread on Reddit. That has a lot of good resources, but these are really just like tipping points, right? They're areas for you to go like, oh, now I have more information and now I have like more questions in some ways, and that kind of should help you direct your focus down the road. But like there
Mhm.
is no end point where you have become so informed that now you can talk about it. Like um you should always be open to getting more information and getting your chops busted, and like finding out that, oh, this argument doesn't really work. One thing that we've done on TACIS a lot is we've shifted our focus. I mean, it's been less vocally in the last few months, but I do tend to prefer an approach uh discussing like bodily autonomy over the facts a lot of the time, because fundamentally whatever the facts are is kind of irrelevant, because if this is a truly free country, I should be allowed to present my body in whatever way I decide is most fit for me personally. That to me sounds like a far more like that what actual freedom is than no, you're not allowed to have long hair and boobs. Like the arguments against it really dissolve in coherency when you're starting from a framework of like bodily autonomy. So you also really need to think about kind of like, what is your goal? Are you trying to combat scientific misinformation, or are you trying to convince people that trans people like just are more fundamentally deserving of like dignity and rights to be who they are? Because those are going to be different approaches as well. So we do have to move on to the next caller soon. So if you want to give any last thoughts, please do. But that's kind of the last of what I have for that.
Okay, well, it's just my main concern is going back to the if you publicly fuck up, you'll get thrashed. Also, like the big fear of alienating yourself from the trans community because the transphobes already fucking hate you, so you can't afford to like stir the boat too much if you're in your own community. But it's just a thing of like if I'm coming on the line, I don't want to be lazy and not have done any research, but also if I show up with like a bunch of terms and definitions, I feel like I will look like an asshole trying to just trap people in corners without giving them the time to do research or anything like that. And I don't know where the middle point is in that.
Well, yeah, I don't know how much more to elaborate on that. It's really, again, like, it depends on what you're trying to bring to us. Are you trying to challenge something that we say here? Because if so, then but also I want to add that if you are coming here with authentic curiosity and asking questions and taking new information and being like, oh, I'm not super convinced yet, but you've given me more information to look into, like, you're not going to get hostility from us or anything like that. So it's like, as long as you are being honest, you're, doing some amount of homework and you are like genuinely coming here to like ask questions or to like get information, like you're not going to get any hostility. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool. All right. You have a wonderful day, Alexandria.
Yes. In the case that Lux is host, is Lux producing?
No, Lux is not here today.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just wanted to wish them well with the loss of their pets.
Yep.
Okay. You have thanks and have a nice day.
Thanks, Alexandria. Bye.
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 Okay. Wow. Our lines are
Lots of
so
people waiting.
full. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What time is it?
I guess
3:23.
it's
I'm probably going to close the lines there because we have completely full lines. We're going to do our best to get to everybody. No guarantees, but yeah.
And just a reminder to get your super chats in. Get your super chats in. Arden and I will be battling it out to see who has to defend an awful position.
Oh yeah. I don't actually have those positions yet. So why don't we're going to take a caller here. We're going to take the one on the top of the list, the one who's waited the longest. And then we'll maybe get to a spicy one. I think there's one or two in the line.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I will work on getting those our punishment positions up while this person's on. So we're going to talk to you next. Tyla, she, her in Arizona, has looking for some advice on dealing with family throughout the holidays. So Tyla, you are on with Arden and Dr. Ben. What's going on?
Hi, Arden and Dr. Ben. It's so great to talk to you guys.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
Yeah. So basically, this is going to be my first Christmas since coming out a year and a half ago with most of my family, and a further extended family than I've seen in years, like cousins and whatnot. And unfortunately, most of my family is very transphobic and bigoted in lots of ways. And so I have a hard time. I have a hard time like just dealing with them and even interacting with them. And I just wanted to see if either of you had some advice that could just help me get through the night.
Yeah, so this sounds like my family situation. I guess a question is like, do you have the option to not show up? And are you choosing to interact with these people, or is this like you're forced to interact with these people? Because that kind of changes how I would approach it.
Gotcha. At this time, I am choosing to interact with them, and
Okay.
there's a lot of just nuance about it, and it's mostly just for my daughter so she can hang out with her cousins
Mm.
hmm
and all that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tough situation.
Yeah, so I definitely get that. Like, it sounds like you're in a position where you need to kind of be there to kind of maintain some positive relationship, even though there's a lot of underlying toxicity. And I think in this
Hmm.
case, it would be a great idea to set some boundaries with the people that you're going to be around. Um, like, kind of establish that, hey, if there are any issues, like if people are intentionally hostile, if people are going to intentionally misgender you, dead name you, etc., like set up what boundaries are deal breakers for you, and don't be afraid
Okay.
to leave the situation if any of that is violated. I think like it's fine to kind of put yourself in uncomfortable situations, like, and there are times when my boundaries might even change because of the amount of uh diplomacy I'm trying to have with people. In a way, like I might sacrifice certain things in order to maintain certain relationships, but you have to figure out where those lines are for you. But if you tell them,
Of
hey,
course.
this is
Okay.
these are my deal breakers. Like I'm going to be respectful and cordial with you all as long as we can kind of play nice and agree over these things. If this line is crossed, like that's it. I'm going to walk away. I'm not coming back to these events, all that stuff. So I think you have to be pretty firm with that. Um, Otherwise, like that's one approach to take. Another one would be to just like for the sake of the relationship, deal with it and then kind of recover from it later. I don't think the latter is healthy. I don't think you're gonna feel as good after that. I don't think it's gonna be a great way to handle it, but you have to weigh that out for yourself of is it worth it to be more combative about it, to be upfront with your boundaries, or is it better for you to sit quietly and kind of let them do what they want? And depending on your circumstances, one might be more favorable. I'd advocate for the boundary setting ahead of time. But Arden might disagree with me
Okay.
or have a different idea entirely.
No, I don't really do. I think boundary setting ahead of time is a really good strategy. I actually recently kind of had to go through this, not for the holidays, but I was gone for the last like month because my grandmother was dying, and I flew home to see her, and it was unfortunately with the side of my family that I have a really strained relationship with. So I really relate to your situation, looking down the barrel of going home to a situation like that. My grandmother was always
I'm sorry to
amazing,
hear
which
that.
is thank you, I appreciate that. Um, my grandmother was always amazing, which is why it was like no question whether or not I'd be there for her. Um,
Hmm.
but I the only boundary that I decided to set with my family this time was that we weren't going to talk about any of the things that we've disagreed on public or privately before. Previously,
Hmm.
we weren't going to broach those topics at all, and that was pretty successful for at least keeping the peace for a few days. And I don't know. I think in the past I would have been more keen to uh not go home, not interact with them. But I will say going through a loss like that really does kind of shake your priorities and kind of what you're looking to get out of those things. And I don't know, it's hard. It's complicated, and I think what I want people to take away from this is, I don't know that we're gonna have great advice for you specifically, Tyler, but I do want people to realize that this is like just a really common experience for trans people about how difficult it can be to go home and be around your family. And that's not because we don't value family or because we like love separating the kids from their parents, like adult children from their parents. Of course not. Like everyone wants the love and approval of your parent. That is a biological thing that is rooted deeply in almost every single person.
Yeah.
I also want closeness with my parents, but it is hard when they treat you poorly or they don't, affirm your gender or they, have like in my household, there is like a double standard. It's we can't talk about politics, but they talk about politics all the time. It's I can't make them feel bad for the politics is the real position that they have.
100% the same.
Yeah, and that's really frustrating, but I also I don't know, it's hard. I want relationships with even my annoying asshole of a dad. I want relationships with my little brother, and I want relationships with my extended family too, who I have a hard time with. It's, I think, good to aspire to those relationships, but I also think it's totally okay and acceptable if you feel like you need to set boundaries to do so and to not let them be violated. Like one thing that I know I do, and maybe this is a privilege thing, but my parents were divorced, but they both have houses in my hometown. My mom goes away for the winter. They're snowbirds because I grew up in the great cold north. So I spend my time sleeping and staying at my mom's house, and then I spend the whole day over there with my dad. But I always have a place where I can bounce away and get away. And I think that was also really helpful, having a place where you can be like, if it gets too much, if they cross your boundaries, if you feel like you need to take some space, that there is an option for you to do that. And so I think trying to foster that kind of, even if it's not a whole other house, like obviously that might be difficult, but if you need to stay at a hotel or if you have a friend or somebody else in town that you can stay with, I think those kinds of things can be really helpful to fostering your patience with their nonsense, at knowing that if it crosses a critical mass, you don't have to stay there,
Oh, yeah. I'm good. I'm sorry. I'm at work and give me just 1 second. Sorry about that.
Oh. I think Tyla's potentially wrapped up in something.
175.
All right. We're going to have to let you go, Tyler, since there's something else going on in the background, but hopefully that advice was helpful. I wish you the best of luck at your home trip, and thanks for calling.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, too, as well. Your advice was greatly very helpful.
Awesome. You have a lovely day, Tyler. Bye-bye.
You as well. Bye.
Alrighty. Well... oops, hold on, where's that button? There we go. Yeah, that's a super hard one. I saw somebody say I might call in. The lines are closed for today. We've hit our limit for callers for the day, but we are gonna get to the people who are currently in the queue. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really hard one. And even like it takes me weeks to recover after going home. I'm still not totally bounced back after how like mentally exhausting it can be to be in that sort of environment repeatedly. But there's also like a lot of value to it too, like I do value closeness to family, especially my little brother. I got to see him play his first hockey game I ever got to watch, and that was really fun. He scored a goal right away, and I was like, that's my little bro. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I know you did something good, so I'm proud of you.
That's awesome.
All right. We have a bunch of other callers. Let's talk to, is it Joe? Joe. Yeah, let's talk to Joe. I think that's the last like spicy looking caller that's on the list. Well, we'll see. We're going to talk to Joe though. Joe and him in Washington wants clarification on trans people and rights. So Joe, you are live on the line with Arden and Ben. What's going on?
I was just curious, I guess, how you don't think that trans rights are extra rights.
sure, trans people face unique discrimination in society, and so seeking protection from unique discrimination and disparate impact of like laws and legislation is kind of the foundation of what all civil rights are.
Okay, so I'm just, you say unique discrimination. Can you name one instance where a male was not allowed to participate in sports with other males based on being trans?
See, Joe,
you
you're
just shifted the
question that you
goalposts hugely.
the question that you like called in with is just nonsensical. It's when if trans people had their rights infringed on based on their biological sex, the discrimination based on biological sex is not the issue with discrimination against trans people. Like, we're talking about gender.
So you agree
biological
it's extra right?
sex discrimination. Sex
Not at
discrimination is
all.
different.
Why are you, Joe? Why do you want to start?
Different than gender discrimination.
Can we pause for a second? Because Joe, I want to just take stock of what just happened throughout the beginning of this call. You came in and said, "How do we think trans rights are not extra rights?" I answered.
Right.
Then you shifted the goalpost to, "Has a male ever been denied the ability to participate on a male sports team, and how is that?"
Yeah.
Biological sex discrimination. So that's, can you acknowledge? Can you hold on? Can you acknowledge that that is a completely different question from the first question you asked?
Okay, so I'm gonna present, or I
can you acknowledge
a situation where there so males.
So Joe, I'm gonna mute you. You're muted right now. Nobody can hear you. So you might as well stop talking. I can see you're still talking in the background. Yep, you might as well just stop because nobody can hear you. Okay, good job. Can you acknowledge that you shifted the goalpost? That that's a completely different conversation from things like disparate impact and unique level. You're still talking. So now I'm at a new problem, Joe, because I have literally zero interest in talking to somebody who is going to shift the goalposts around and play this like rhetorical like word game with me. So if you want to answer the questions I have, I'm happy to continue. But if we're going to play this like sort of shifting the goalpost game, I genuinely have zero interest. So you're unmuted now.
Can you explain to me how I shifted the goalpost exactly when I isolate an incident or a right?
Yeah. I already did, but since you didn't listen, I'm happy to do it again. So you came in and you said, can you describe to me how transgender rights aren't extra rights? And I explained to you that unique discrimination and disparate impact of laws is like a foundational principle of civil rights. And trans people do face those unique forms of discrimination and disparate impact of laws, right? And then you shifted the goalpost to, has a biological male ever been denied access to a male sport? Those are not the same question, right? Because my question talks about things like the way that trans people can be discriminated against in things like housing policies, or they ruled on this in, I think it was a federal court case last year, that while the Supreme Court ruled you can't fire an employee for being trans, you can refuse to hire an employee for being trans. Those are things that are unique forms of discrimination that have nothing to do with our biological sex or which category we are in. They're not special rights. Those are foundational civil rights ideas. So that's how they are not the same as specifically a case where if a trans woman wanted to be on a male sports team and she wanted to, and they let her, okay, cool. That's great. I don't care about that. That's not what I'm talking about. And that's not what topic you brought us in the first place. If that's what you really want to talk about, we can get into that, but those are not the same thing.
So Title IX doesn't establish protections based on biological sex?
So you're not going to actually contend with anything I said. Okay, good. I don't need to talk to you, Joe. I genuinely have zero interest in talking to someone who's not going to listen to anything I say or respond to anything I say. Get fucked. Bye-bye. Suck the sweaty farts from my asshole, please, sir. Yeah, no, I have absolutely no spoons left for talking to people who cannot answer a direct question like that.
Yep.
That's not somebody who's actually interested in sorting out what trans rights are, not interested in understanding what I'm actually advocating for. This is somebody who came in with a gotcha and thought that they had something when they didn't. They moved the goalposts around and thought they looked like they were smart, and really they just looked dishonest as fuck. So, like, genuinely could not give less of a fuck about talking to someone like that, literally ever. If you are like that, don't call my show. I don't want to talk to you. Okay, let's see what we have next. Here we go. This one's kind of in a similar vein. This is Maureen, she, her in Canada, wants to ask about bias against trans people that's not just physical. So, Maureen, you are live on the line with Arden and Ben. What's going on? Oops, hold on. Sorry, I had you muted from the last caller. Can we start that again?
Oh.
No worries. Maureen, she, her in Canada, you're live on the line with Arden and Dr. Ben. What's going on?
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Doing good.
Yeah, I've been listening to TACIS for a while now, trying to figure things out and learn things. And it seems that most of the topic is always about a trans woman and a lot about the physical, being in sport. And I sort of have this thought that this is a lot to do with a patriarchal society that just is misogynistic, because women have never been treated equally, not just by their physical being, but by their mental, their emotional, their intellect. The patriarchy just does never want to say that we are equal in any of those. And do you think that is just the misogynistic part of the society coming out? Why does it seem to be mostly against trans women? You don't hear a lot of talk about the trans men and the biases that they face. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
This is definitely 100%. I agree that, like, the root of all of this is misogyny, and it's kind of it's an interesting kind of intersection of trans women tend to get a lot of the focus because, like, in society there's one right way to be a man, and there's nothing better than being a man. Being a man is the best thing you could do for yourself, and any implication that you could be assigned male at birth and not be a man is, like, that's horrifying to those people. They don't want to think about the possibility that they might not be deserving of all these extra rights and stuff just because of the way they were born. But then trans men don't really get any attention because we were assigned female, and therefore we had no hope of attaining status of a man. And so there's no way that we could ever measure up to a man. And instead of giving us the even any discussion on that, they just assume we're not worthy to be in the room to begin with. So it's like, oh, your voice doesn't need to be heard. We don't believe you're a man. You'll never be a man. Go back to the second class society that you came from. So it's this very interesting, like, manifestation of misogyny. And I've heard some people like try to claim that the bias against trans men is misandry, and I would disagree with that. I would say it is misogyny, because the opposition to trans men isn't on the basis of their masculinity. It's not on the basis of them being men. It's on the basis of them being assigned female. And so that's where it's still misogyny, even throughout that. And if you look at just with the gender hegemony in society in general, like with masculinity, you have I don't know, this, like, it's so weird, like, being on the outside looking in at that, because I was never raised to be the person whose voice was heard. I was never raised to be confident in myself, like, and now I have to compete with those people who are told your voice matters and all that. But I didn't realize, like, how how difficult it is to constantly have to assert your masculinity and say, no, I am all of these things that make you a real man. And that we're talking about like heterosexuality. We see like a lot of the same misogynistic stances are used against queer men of all varieties, and used even against cishet men who don't fit traditional gender stereotypes. And I do think all of that, it really boils down to the same misogyny.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I agree. I kind of like think that it's almost they look at a trans woman and say, "How dare you not want to be a man?" Because the best thing is to be a man. Like,
100%.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, and so then I guess you take a trans man and they're going like, "Oh, well, they just want to be equal with us, so they just want to be us." Yeah, I guess that's all I kind of had to say about that. It's yeah, I'm not trying to be a man hater either. I'm a cis woman, but you can't deny the misogyny that goes on, and it just seems to be doubled down when it comes to.
It was funny. I did get
Ooh,
just like a side comment. I did get a troll
did I hang
comment
up?
on my
Oh my
channel
goodness!
this past week. No, you're
Oh,
still on. You're still
Oh,
on.
I
I
think
think
I lost
your
you.
web caller lagged a little bit.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead, Ben. Finish
I'm
your
sorry.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
No, I
yeah, that
I
was
got a
just my
comment.
thought. Huh?
Yeah, I got a comment on my channel this past week from somebody telling me simultaneously that I'm not a real man, and that I never will be a real man, but also that I should not weigh in on abortion rights conversations because I'm a man. So what is it? Am I too much of a man to talk about reproduction, or am I not a real man and therefore should just reproduce like a female? Like, I don't know what they want me to do at this point.
So it sounds like the real confusion is the male. He's just confused. He doesn't know what he is or what he wants to be. He just wants to be the best.
Yeah. This is kind of related to like the whole sports thing about how, like, there are these like limitations that they put in place for female athletes, even cisgender female athletes, but there's no such limitations for male athletes in the same way, where it's like the presumption is that like when men are amazing and have some stroke of luck to have some biological anomaly that makes them really good at whatever sport they're in, that is just male excellence. And how wonderful is that? We should all celebrate that. But when women are excellent due to some biological anomaly that makes them really good at whatever sport, they're men. They're functionally men, and it's not fair to the poor fragile little women, because women are supposed to be small and fragile and weak, and any woman who is not small and fragile and weak must be because she's not actually a woman. Yeah, I think a lot of these beliefs are fundamentally rooted in patriarchy and hatred of women and hatred of femininity. Femininity. I struggled with that one. Yeah, I think you're spot on the mark for that one, Maureen.
Okay. Well, thanks. That's all I really had to say. I just wanted to hear your opinions on that.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for calling in, Maureen.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. I saw the guy who we hung up on being in chat being like, I got hung up on. That was me who just got hung up on. Yes, we know, Queen.
Yeah.
And I explained to you why I did it live on air while you were still there, but you were talking the whole fucking time, so you couldn't listen. This is a conversation. It's not an open mic. You don't just get to call and talk unabated about whatever you want. There's plenty of TikTok lives if you want to do that, where people just let people run rampant. All right, so I'm thinking we might take these in almost reverse order that they're in on the list. I think that seems like order of
we can do
relevance.
that.
So we're going to talk to Noai, and then we're going to talk to Winter, and then Lee, you will be last. So if you guys can hear me now, if that's a problem for you, I understand. If you do hang on, we will get to you. We have plenty of time to get to all three of you today. So I will do my best. But up first, we're going to talk to Noai, any and all pronouns in Spain, who has some thoughts about trans discourse. So, Noi, you are live on the line with Arden and Dr. Ben. What's going on?
Hello?
Hello.
No.
Hey, what's up? So I don't have my thoughts super organized, so it might be kind of chaotic. Sorry about that. Because I kind of just called out of the blue when you made the comment about trans people losing favor in society.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm in Spain, so it's kind of different context. But like I've basically been brought up like I don't think I've ever heard from any figure of authority something like you can't do that because you're a boy, or you can't do that because you're a girl. Like even the concept of gender to me is something that came from the US. Like I don't know. So it's a kind of a different philosophy. Like so basically, when I hear a lot of the discourse that comes out from there, I can imagine someone that has been brought up in a similar way to me wanting to push back really hard to the point where they can be radicalized, I guess, in a direction that's really negative. And yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to.
Do you mean like in like a gender critical way? Like they'd be like super anti-trans?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because like depending what is said, it can sound cultish sometimes. Like it.
I would argue
I don't know.
that gender critical points usually sound more cultish to me than pro-trans talking points, but I would love if you had any specific examples. I know you said you kind of called out of the blue, so that's fine if you don't have like ones you've thought of previously on hand. For reference for the audience, in case this gets turned into a clip, a previous caller called in and was concerned about things they say being weaponized against the trans community, and I had said that I don't think it could ever be the trans person's fault that conservatives will weaponize things out of context to remove trans rights. And so I think Noah here is saying that maybe that's you don't believe that's the case, and you think sometimes it can kind of be the things we advocate for are the reason that things are happening or whatever.
No, I guess I'm just super against forcing language. I think
who's forcing language
doesn't help. Well, I explained my background, but like just from what's happening in the US, I think it's right to assume that there's still a lot of people that use the words gender and sex as synonyms.
Sure.
And I think like talking to people that use these words this way, as if they are bigoted or transphobic because of that, is super dangerous.
So to be clear, I would never say that because someone uses gender and sex interchangeably that makes them a bigot. Plenty of people call in and use words that way. Like I would agree. I think a lot of people, maybe even the majority in the US, use gender, man and woman, to be virtually synonymous with male and female.
Yeah.
And if we have a good intellectual conversation, my approach is always, I don't call them out when it's early on, especially if it seems like it's going to be a good conversation. And if we do have a good conversation where there's some understanding achieved or some sort of concessions made on like, okay, I didn't know that about this or whatever, then after that, at the end, I will say, by the way, at the beginning of the conversation, you use this word this way. Typically, I think it's better to do words this way personally. And I think these words can be considered offensive by the community, but like, I appreciate that you came here in good faith and you had a good discussion, and I invite you to call back or something like that. That's happened countless times on this show. Often
Mm.
using those words that way is, however, a precursor to actual transphobic beliefs, and I don't think it's wrong to call that out. It's not the
Uh,
using gender
I
that
think
way that makes them
precursor.
transphobic. It's usually there's some transphobic belief that also leads them to have a gender essentialist worldview where they think
Mm.
that gender and sex are synonymous and that they can only use words that way and that I can only use words that way. But I would never say that somebody using words that way in and of itself makes someone transphobic. That's never been a position I would advocate for and never have.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said before, like, well, I think Ben basically said that, like, the public isn't ready to have the real discourse, so we kind of have to water it down. And I don't know, I guess I just disagree with that. Or maybe it's because I'm from here, or maybe because I'm antisocial shut-in and I'm not aware of the stupidity
I'm
of
not sure if
people.
yeah, I'm not sure if you're
But like,
understanding fully what I meant by that statement.
hmm?
I said like getting into a lot of the philosophical nuance or like very individualized gender conversations is kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about on a political scale, right? Like the
Yeah.
fact I might like I would argue probably a lot of people are not fully binary in the way that a lot is the way that society kind of defines it. Like there's a
Mm.
wide range on the spectrum of like, oh, you could like even addressing things like demi boy, demi girl, gender fluidity. Those things can be very individualized, and I think they're great to talk about. However, getting into the nitty gritty of what does it mean to be a demi boy isn't really helping the political conversation of should trans people be able to use a bathroom, like, and for people who don't understand even what being trans is to begin with, understanding those smaller points is probably going to further muddy the waters and not likely generate allies out of them. So that's what I mean. It's not saying that
Mm.
like we have to police the language or make everything simple. It's just finding the right time and place to kind of work with people at the stage that they're at instead of trying to force them along too quickly. Like with anything, there's a reason why we have stages from introductory biology to like college level biology to majors college level to graduate level, all that. Like you have it overly simplified at the beginning, but with each stage you
Yeah.
get more and more information. But it's unfair it is unfair to throw doctorate level biology at somebody that didn't finish high school biology yet. Like we have to walk them through it, and it's not saying that they have to remain there, but it's just being aware that maybe pushing them too far isn't helpful.
It's also funny because like, and I'm sorry, I'll let you get in here, Noah, in just a second. But like, I also get like I think all the hosts on TACIS get castigated by our audience from time to time when somebody calls in and uses a term like biological male and we don't jump on them for it. I see all the time, almost every time somebody uses that term and I don't directly immediately correct it. I see usually somebody in the chat or in the comments being like, "Oh, I wish they had said something about the biological male thing." I think 2 previous callers today used that term and I didn't jump on them. I do think that term is like confused and doesn't really make sense because the only opposition to biological is like bionic, I guess, or mechanical, and trans people clearly aren't robots, so that doesn't make any sense. Like it's a nonsense term to use. But I know what people mean and I
Yeah,
want to
that's
meet them where they're at. So I usually don't jump on people for language super quickly. I usually want to have
yeah.
usually
I'm not
a
even
conversation where
criticizing
they're
you
at
guys.
first and then start working on things like that. But like I don't police anyone's language.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not trying to criticize you. I guess in this situation, I would be criticizing whoever it is in chat that complained that you don't jump to people instantly. Because to me, language is just there to communicate, and you can just use whatever words as long as the message gets across.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I yeah, I 100%. I have no interest in, and this is something I always try to advocate for. It's so frustrating when people say things like, we get calls all the time from people being like, I don't hate transgenders, but when they want to force me to use she, her pronouns when I know they're a biological male, well, that makes me mad. Nobody's forcing you to use pronouns. It's a matter of respect. I'm not going to have people in my life, friends, close loved ones, who disrespect me by using the wrong pronouns for me. But I'm not forcing anyone. If you want to use pronouns, that's great. You use whatever pronouns for me you want to. But it doesn't mean I have to have you in my life or interact with you in any meaningful way. So I just never understand what this nonsense is about forcing language or like forcing people into anywhere. Like the only people I see ever forcing anyone into anything or forcing a worldview from like a political medical lens is the conservatives, is the anti-trans bigots. It's like the Labour Party in the UK. It's never the trans activists. It's never the little neo-gender, non-binary weirdo in high school who's causing the problems. It's always the powerful, rich politicians who want to divide us along class lines or divide us along social lines when we ought to be divided along class lines. I have far more in common with some redneck dumbass hick who wants to call me he, him pronouns than I ever will with any of the people in the current, RFK Jr. HHS cabinet. Like I don't know who's controlling them. If you call me he, I might snap back at you. I might be a bitch to you because I'm not a he, and that's offensive to me. But like I'm allowed to be offended, and that doesn't mean I'm controlling your language.
Yeah, just something that just came to my mind. I think I watched part of a show. I'm pretty sure it was you, Arden, and Forrest. There was a guy who did sound transphobic, like, to be fair. But I remember he said something like, no, sex and gender are synonymous. I'm reporting the definition. And I think you both jumped on him for that.
Because sex and gender
kind of
aren't
unfair.
Synonymous, though. Like, do people use them synonymously? Sometimes, yes. But the problem is, when somebody calls into one of our shows to say sex and gender are synonymous, they're not just saying, oh, this is how I use the words. They're trying to say that, no,
they don't understand
these words are
language and
prescriptive.
that it's arbitrary.
They're trying to say these words are prescriptive. And because in my worldview, male and man are the same, if I think you're a male, then I think you're a man. And
right, yeah.
They're advocating for prescriptivism, and I'm saying, no, that's not how those words are being used by anyone on this team. That's not what we are advocating for when you say that. So I might jump on someone for that, but like, it's because if they're coming at me saying this is how it is, they're advocating for something specific, I'm going to challenge it. That's literally my whole job. But it's not like I am going out in public and hearing somebody say, oh, that, female athlete did this. And I'm like, excuse me, you don't know that she's a female. All you know is that she's a woman. I'm not doing that in public. I'm on a call-in show taking calls from people about these issues.
Yeah. And I just like, it seems like, and I don't think you're doing this intentionally maybe, but there's kind of a blurring here of what is policing language and what is correcting misinformation or debunking misinformation. Like when we are, like what Arden was saying, when we are addressing somebody's language, it's because we're getting to their argument and what they are claiming and addressing that. And I don't think it's fair to kind of blame that piece for gender police or like language policing or whatever. Like I think that maybe there's a misunderstanding with the intent of certain things that we do or certain things that we argue. So if we do correct somebody on something, it's not just like correcting somebody to correct somebody. Like there's like Arden was saying, like when they call into a show, especially, they have a reason for framing things the way that they do. They have a reason for using the language that they do.
Mm.
And so it's that argument getting down to that, because if we concede on those points, then we could be giving them a lot of leeway to smuggle in claims that we do not accept. And that can be problematic.
Sure, but I don't know. I guess I argue a lot differently. I tend to.
I guess I just don't understand why you're pushing back so much on this point when,
I guess
like,
I'm half autistic.
if the core of this is to debunk misinformation,
more.
If the core of this is to debunk misinformation and to improve rights and protections for the trans community, like the important thing isn't the semantics of the definitions, right? Like the importance is, what are we doing with this language? What arguments are we making? How are we influencing public opinion and policy with that? And so I think sometimes getting into this definitional weeds, like, yeah, if we come to the table and you want to say that gender and sex are the same thing, there are ways that you can use kind of common language in that case to reach the points that you need to, but to keep it clear and to make sure that we're not equivocating, that's a big reason why we point out those issues. Because if somebody can say that sex and gender are the same, and if we start using the language as if they're the same without specifying what we mean by that, they can start smuggling in points and say, oh, well, you clearly agree with me that sex and gender are the same, therefore trans women should be in male sports only. Like, there are ways to use that to make their points, and that's why we have to address those definitions and make sure we're on the same page of those being separate. That's kind of why we fight so hard on that.
Yeah. I'm like Arden on this one. I just really don't care about sports, so I can't tell you anything about that. Yeah.
Listen, I don't doubt, Noah, that there have been times where I have jumped down someone a little too soon. Maybe I didn't actually have enough information, and usually
Sorry,
in my
I didn't mean to call as a criticism to you guys.
It's okay. Criticizing is okay. I mean, we're here publicly talking to people all the time. Criticism is going to be a natural part of that. But I think it's very likely that I have made mistakes, that I've jumped on people too soon in the past. And if you can show me a specific example where you're like, hey, this time this person said that and you did this, and I think that was a little inappropriate. And if I agree, I'll tell you, like, yeah, you're right. I went way too hard that time. But we're live here 6 shows a week for like 3 hours a piece. I think there's probably lots of mistakes that get made in the mess of it all. And so if you have specific things, I'm happy to take that on. But I definitely don't think, to like the original question, that there is ever a point where gender discourse by like the trans community at large, or us specifically, or any sort of, group therein, is responsible for the destruction of like our public credibility in the broader culture. And this is normal, by the way. We saw this in the civil rights era too, where like rights were gaining ground in certain areas, and then as it became a more national conversation, there was a bigger pushback to it. So I think this is kind of it could go really badly, and it could completely backslide for sure, but this is also probably a necessary step to a future that is fully inclusive. So the fact that public favor is being lost on trans issues doesn't really strike me as shocking or concerning with regard to, like, I think we should stay on message. I have principles. I'm very clear about them. I think I've never had anyone challenge them and completely undermine them. But if they did, I would change my worldview. I'm open to changing. Like, there could be a world in which kids should wait till they're 18 to access transition care. I don't think the evidence, the jury is out on that. I think so far the evidence seems to indicate that having access to age appropriate evidence-based care is actually really good for these kids. But there's a world where that could be shown to be wrong on that, and I'm totally open to changing according to the evidence. I don't think the backsliding has anything to do with trans activists. It has everything to do with special interest groups who benefit from maligning us while they pickpocket the rest of the American people and the working class.
Yeah, I guess just how do I say this? I don't know. Like, I don't know really what America's like. But if it were that a big percentage of the population is similar in their view to me, then it's possible that with a different explanation of the whole thing, the subject wouldn't have been able to be politicized the way that it has.
Whose fault is it that the narrative that they currently have is the one that they currently have? Because it's not what trans people are putting forward. It's not what trans people are advocating for. It's not what activist groups have been advocating for, right?
The bigoted, stupid people, like, first and foremost.
I agree. I think there's lots of people who are probably like who maybe don't necessarily get everything, but they just haven't had access to the right story and the right information yet. That's why we are here, right? To engage in those sorts of conversations. But all I'm saying is, I don't think it's trans people's fault. If that previous caller has to say, I don't completely understand if I think that I am technically ontologically a woman or not, but I want to be who I am and be able to live my life the way I want to. I don't think it's her fault. I don't think it's non-binary kids' fault for using like tree self pronouns, that there's been a degradation in support of trans rights culturally. Like, I think we should probably put a cap on it here, because I think we're kind of spinning in circles now. I still fail to see really what your pushback is. But if you go away and you think about it and you're like, oh, actually, here's some more like direct kind of ideas that I wanted to pitch to you guys, we'd be happy to have you call back and give it to us again.
I do have another, but I don't know if you want to.
Let's make it kind of quick, because we do have 2 other callers. So like, if you can do it in under a minute, great. If you don't think you can, then maybe we should wait till next time.
Okay, under a minute. So personally, like, I believe there's a chance I might be the kind of person that is trans, like, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But because I've been brought up this way, like, pretty much none of what I've seen online applies to me. And I guess I don't know what to do about that. And I should at least say that if there's other people like me out there, the current discourse is leaving us, like, is forgetting about us, or I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to give you an elevator pitch here. And again, this is, also I want to reiterate exactly everything that I just said, that the version that you're hearing out in the culture is not the one that trans activists or trans healthcare professionals are putting forward. I want you to be whoever is best for you. And I think it's sometimes easier to stop thinking about labels, stop thinking about a destination, and start thinking about specifics. What things are going to make you feel better in your body and interacting with people? Is it having longer hair? Cool. That doesn't mean anything. Boys can have longer hair. Girls can have longer hair. Laser hair removal. Boys can get a clean laser face if you don't end up being a woman, but you still want that. Like, that specific steps that you can take to make yourself feel better in your body are better than going for the, like, where am I going to land, the end goal, the label, or anything like that. But I don't think people like you are being I shouldn't say that, because I'm realizing you're here saying that's how you feel. But I know tons of people who are active in the trans community who feel very similarly to you, that they they don't know if they're trans femme or if they're just non-binary, and they don't really care about the label because they just want to be themselves at the end of the day. Almost actually, I've said this before, but almost every detransitioner that I've met in real life, not the ones like Chloe Cole who've made a professional career out of trying to destroy trans healthcare. Um, every detransitioner I've met in real life, which is several actually, has ultimately landed on a position where they're like, I don't care actually if I'm a man or if I'm a woman or if I'm non-binary. That whole effort
Yeah.
was just stressful to me, and I just want to be myself. And if that means that I have boobs and a deep voice, cool. If that means whatever, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to be able to be myself without all of the expectation of needing to pick a lane, because you don't need to pick a lane.
Yeah. No, I'm already like that. I guess well, I don't know. I'll just leave it here. I guess I'm just kind of frustrated with the current situation. And because I believe it would be interesting to study a lot of the neurological side of all of this, but we just can't due to the, anyway.
Sure. All right, you know why? Thanks for
Yeah.
calling. Call back again, okay? Elaborate on this question another time, but we got to move on. Have a good day.
Okay. See ya. Thanks.
All right.
It's interesting. We got a lot of pushback
Yeah.
over and over again, and I kept feeling like we're on the same page, dude. I don't understand what's
I'm
going
still
on.
confused about what the whole conversation was about.
All right, we have
Like,
two
I don't
more
even know what the
calls.
point of that was.
And about 15 minutes to hit them both, so we can't spend too long in either one, but we're going to talk to Winter, pronouns they and she, in Ohio, wants to talk about how intersex and trans people aren't the same thing, and they often get misconstrued. So, Winter, you are live with Arden and Ben. What's going on?
It's going all right. How about you guys?
Doing all
All
right.
right.
Yeah, so I guess like with the time constraint, I'll make it as quick as I can. I have Klinefelters and I am also trans, and I often get told that I am trans because I have Klinefelters by people who don't understand that intersex and trans are not the same thing. And they don't understand how they often intersect, but they aren't actually like the same group of people. And when they tell me that, I don't know what to say to them, and I don't know how to like defend myself. And I was wondering if you guys could give me some like help on that.
I have one immediate idea that I feel like stands out, which is that something that we say about sex and gender, where we say they are not unrelated. They are not like, what you might call orthogonal, but they are not the same thing. Yes, clearly sex and gender are related. Most people are cisgender. Most assigned female people identify as women. And likewise, most assigned males identify as men. They're clearly not unrelated, but they're not one and the same. And I think for intersex, it's the same thing, where I don't know what the actual rates are, but obviously the majority of like people with Klinefelters probably identify as cis men. But I'm sure there's also like a slightly higher rate of people who have things like Klinefelters identifying as trans for very understandable reasons. So I think it's probably very similar, where it's like sex and gender are not the same thing, but there's a heavy relationship there too. So that's my immediate thing that jumps to mind. Ben, did you have any thoughts?
That was literally my same thought process. Like, it's the very example of like why I utilize intersex as a way to kind of break down people's prescribed definitions. Is they're not the same, but like understanding that there are intersex people does force you to say, okay, well, maybe the physical properties are separate from the psychological properties and the sociological properties. And so, this is definitely an issue that I've seen come up for people that I know who are both intersex and trans. And I know there is a little bit of a nuanced discussion there as far as talking to people about, does like what direction are you transitioning? Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding too with people saying that like, oh, but if you are intersex, does that mean no matter how you identify is trans? And that's something I'm sure people have different responses about. My kind of approach to that would be to say, okay, well, the transition is from how you were assigned at birth. Like if you were raised to be one thing and then socially transitioned, medically transitioned, did something where you went to something else that was not what you were kind of born and raised as, that's kind of the typical definition of trans. But I'd be curious too to hear your thoughts on that little piece.
Yeah, hang on. I literally, like, everything just got deleted. Give me a second. My whole brain just blanked.
Oh, I relate to you so hard, girl. Go for it.
I guess, like, the biggest issue I have with it is, I'm just going to start from where my brain is picking up. I apologize if I miss a point that you brought up. It was not intentional. One of the biggest issues I keep running into is this argument that, like, you can't be born trans unless you're intersex. And
Yeah.
I don't understand, like, you know, like, it makes no sense to me because, like, I mean, we're born what we're born. We're born what we are. And I have been, like I've gotten into discussions about this several times, and people, like, you know, I'm started off trans femme, started kind of going non-binary towards the later stages of everything. But when I talk to them about it, and they're like, "Oh, well, you're never born trans," I'm like, "Well, actually, funny story about my chromosomes." And then they're like, "Oh, so you were born trans? You are born trans?" And it
Right.
feels like it's invalidating everything else in the trans community alongside it. And I don't know where the cutoff is for, like, trying to explain to people in a compassionate way, because I don't try to attack people. I am a wheelchair-bound tiny woman. I don't try to attack people. I can't defend myself. So I don't know, like, where to go with compassion to something like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, this is just the nature of oppression, isn't it? I feel like this is,
Mm.
I mean, the caller who was being, difficult, Joe, I think was his name, who, like, changed the topic, like, immediately in his second sentence. Oh, see, now it's happening to me. Where was I going with that? And it's gone, evaporated in my hands, like
The
I'm in a
ADHD
sauna or
kicked
something.
in
Oh my
full
God.
bore.
It's contagious,
Contagious,
clearly.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're totally fine. That's not your fault. Oh, where was I going with that? I don't know. Ben, you got thoughts? You want to pick up our slack?
Yeah, no, but it's definitely an interesting conversation, and this is why I think it's so important, again, to separate out sex and gender, and also to emphasize the societal role of how we're taught gender norms from a young age. Because yeah, it doesn't really matter what your chromosomes are, what your biology is. Like if you were raised a certain way, and assigned something and given certain expectations, like whether you end up transitioning to non-binary, or if you're trans femme, trans masculine, anywhere on the spectrum, like you're still facing a lot of the same oppression, a lot of the same societal barriers, a lot of the same fears about social transition, about medical transition, and all of that is separate from whatever you were born with. Like no matter what, those obstacles are still going to be in place. And so looking at that, like the struggles of being trans transcend, if you will, the physical body that you have. And I think that's where a lot of that's where a lot of trans people can relate to intersex people. And granted, I'm not knowingly intersex, so correct me if your experience differs, but I feel like a lot of these societal barriers for people who are intersex and for people who are trans kind of overlap. But I could see where there could be extra confusion and extra difficulties having that intersectionality between both of those identities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is absolutely how it is. Fun fact about, and this will be my last point because I know you guys have another call. Fun fact about Klinefelter syndrome: most people who get diagnosed with it don't find out until they transition or go in for hormone testing for baby making reasons.
Yep.
Yep.
It's like one of
Yep.
the most least diagnosed intersex subcategories of people. It's insanely interesting.
Yeah, I actually
Yeah.
thought for a while that I might have it because I know one of the symptoms. I just glommed on to one symptom, if I'm being totally honest. I heard about it in college, and they mentioned like, oh, like Klinefelter's syndrome can often result in like very long limbs for people. And if you see my parents, you're like, how the fuck did you come out of those? My parents are tiny, and I'm not tall. I'm like 5'10", but next to the rest of my family, I look like a fucking giant. In a regular society, I just look like slightly above average height or whatever. So it's a weird experience where I was like, oh, maybe that's what's going on, and that's why I'm trans. Like that thought had crossed my mind before, but like I've never tested and don't really feel the need to, because like kind of like you're saying, it kind of is besides the point as to whether or not I'm actually trans, right? Like I just am trans, whether or not any of that is happening. And as you're pointing out, like most people who have Klinefelters didn't know until they went in to be like, hey, I'm trying to have a kid and it's not working. What's going on? And they're like, oh, you've got an extra X chromosome hiding in there, sneaky little fella. Yeah. But hopefully that was helpful, Winter. We do got to take this last caller and then we got to move on. But I appreciate you calling in.
Absolutely. You guys are fantastic. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, last caller. We don't have super long, but I don't want to rush you too hard. Lee, they, them from Pennsylvania is calling about coming out, getting gender affirming care, has an appointment coming up, and wants some information and advice. What's going on, Lee?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I just found the line recently, in the past month, and I've been listening to like Transatlantic on call at work, and it's been amazing. So, I recently called into a gender clinic with my provider, and I'm extremely nervous, mainly because I'm not out to family, I'm not really out at work or anything, and I'm just kind of nervous about going in, like what does it entail? I've had friends talk to me about it, but none of them seem like to give me any tips. And I said a lot of them are younger, so I feel like I'm getting I'm allowed I run a community, so I kind of am around like different ages, but a lot of people didn't really have advice for me. And I'm more concerned because I never thought I was going to go through with this, and then all of a sudden this year happened, and now everything seems to be, going south, and I'm scared to go for gender affirming care just because of, the political climate. And I never thought I would do this, but ever since I got when I go to the doctor, I had another trans person actually noticed that I was wearing a non-binary flag on a mask, and they asked me, they were like, do you want me to put they, them in your chart?
Aw.
And I was just like, what? They're like, do you want me to put they, them in your chart? Do you use they, them? And I said, yes. And they're like, I can put your name and your pronouns in there for you. And ever since that, it was like gender euphoria. And it just put this light in me that I want to go for gender affirming care, despite being absolutely scared shitless.
Yeah, what aspects scare you specifically?
I guess so I'm not going for surgery just because I don't think I'm going to be able to, just due to disability. But I'm looking to do oh my god, sorry, my brain is like scrambled. I'm looking to do T, and I want to try and do low dose T because I identify as like agender non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that I can do low dose T to, I'm hoping for like facial hair, possibly like increased body hair, fat redistribution. I said I already, it was a little frustrating because people were just like, well, just cut your hair. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's enough.
Yeah, it's definitely scary, like especially thinking about T, um, because there are a lot of aspects of it that are permanent changes. And so
Right.
when you go into your appointment, definitely like treat it as like think about like the factors that you've mentioned, like the body you want to have, the type of transition you want to have, and be
Hmm.
transparent with your provider so that they can make kind of specific recommendations as far as what dose of tea you're going to need and all that stuff. And um, so one thing is that while there are some pretty dramatic changes with testosterone, it is pretty gradual, and especially if you end up deciding to go on a lower dose, it'll be extra gradual. So just know that
Gotcha.
certain changes that you might want might require more time on testosterone, or may take longer to happen. For example, like you probably won't have any significant changes other than mood changes for the first couple weeks to a month. Um,
Right.
so in that case, you can kind of sit with it, see how you do with it. If you need to try out different modes of administration, like if you want to try injectable versus T gel, like that's kind of a great time to figure that out, see how it does for your mood, all that stuff. And then at that point, if you hate it, there's really not much that changes at that point, and you can stop and not really have a lot of irreversible effects. Kind of the next big things that happen, like you'll get some pretty annoying voice changes, um,
Right.
like because that'll kind of gradually occur over time, and then body hair kind of shows up long before any facial hair does. So, and then muscle mass changes kind of occur around 5 months or so for most people.
Okay.
So just know that like if you have specific things that you're going for, um, you might not get a good indicator of what it's going to be like super early on. And so you kind of have to work with your team and decide, okay, what is my timeline looking like? Do I want to keep going for this like for the rest of forever? Do I want to go on for a little bit and get some of the like do I want to go on long enough to get voice change and then stop, or and a lot of
Right.
that will be up to you and what your goals are. But I think you're on track with the goals you set in place already, that you've said like these are the things that would give me gender euphoria. Because I think the more information you can give your provider, the easier time they'll have in kind of directing you where to go. But most gender clinics are going to keep it within kind of your goals. They're really
Right.
there to assist you. The whole process is usually very, very simple. Like oftentimes they'll want to like get some baseline labs and kind of track those every quarter. But other than that, like it's one of the most like chill medical visits you will ever have, because really a lot of it is just how can we make you be the best version of you. And a lot of it will come down to like if you have issues with certain things, let them know, because you don't need
Right.
to like they won't know your own experience unless you tell them. So,
Right. Right.
with that being said, if you have a provider that isn't super collaborative, or if they do try to overstep and tell you things that you don't align with, feel like you should hopefully feel comfortable enough to say, I need to find somebody else. Like, don't let them pigeonhole you into something isn't
Right.
that you don't think is right for you.
I don't have a
I'm
whole.
I'm
Oh,
hoping. Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay. I just wanted to add really quickly. Obviously, Ben has most of that information locked down. I was just going to relate to my sibling, is non-binary and has been doing T-gel at really low doses to kind of slowly, subtly masculinize, but they don't really want a full like they don't want a super deep voice or like a full beard or anything like that. And that has been a really good approach for them. And obviously everyone's different. And like Ben said, talk to your provider, get the best information to meet your goals. But definitely there are people out there who are exactly in your shoes and trying the same approach. And um, I think you don't have to hopefully you don't feel too like alone in that process. I know you said you had some community, maybe they're a little on the younger side, really common in trans support groups that like everyone there is like really, really young. Usually you
Yeah.
have like like some like 50, 60-year-old trans women who waited their whole life to come out and now they're finally out. And then you have a bunch of baby trans who are like 19 and 20. That is like the standard spread of trans people at these groups. But yeah, I'm happy for you and glad you're finding your way. Anyway, I wanted to let you give your last thoughts and then we got to move on to super chats.
Yeah, that was the only thing, was like trying to do it gradually, just because I'm worried about like family issues. Like I said, I'm not out to family, so I'm trying to like figure out how to deal with that. That's something I can maybe call in another day for, but like I'm just hoping to do the transition, like if I'm doing low dose or like medium dose, whatever we decide on, to like hopefully it's slow enough that like nobody notices. You know what I mean? Just kind of like stealth it out until I can get like into a better position to like completely transition to what I want to do or what have you. Like I said, I'm not sure about surgery, but like I definitely want to do T. So we'll see that, like where that goes. But my concern is just trying to like stay on the down low until I can get like more away from family than I am.
Yeah. Well, definitely call back if you want to get into that section of all that a little bit more. But we appreciate you calling in, Lee, and I wish you best of luck, and I hope you have a happy holiday.
You too. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you have a good night or day, whatever it is.
We got you. Later, Lee.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. That has been the call-in portion of the show. We're going to move on to take your super chats. There is going to be a calling it now. I'm surprised. I didn't think that was going to happen, but I guess they are doing one. So there'll be a calling it now with Lux and Jimmy after the show. So you'll get automatically sent over there. I know they've been having some issues though with the production software and how it works with the vertical thing. Anyway, we're going to hit these super chats. There are your options in the poll in the chat for what punishment position we have to defend. Today, you have transgender for everybody 2026, mostly because Donald Trump keeps saying it, and I think it's the funniest phrase in the world. He's like, your mother, your father, everyone's transgender. Non-binary people must wear jorts, mostly because I wanted in on that action and I didn't get to last week, and I'm mad about it. And then men must all wear skirts. So those are your options. Get to voting, and we're gonna take your super chats. Starting. Now. Want to start?
Yep. $10 from Legally Mod. Every trans kid who dies because of Trump should be considered a victim of second-degree murder. Soccer, the ban is done with malice, and the intent to cause harm. Trans kids should be evaluated. I mean, yes, there's a little bit of word salad in there that I'm not sure what that means, but yes, Trump should be held accountable for his actions.
Yeah, good luck ever getting him held accountable for those charges, but definitely I really want RFK Jr. to be held accountable for what he's done to health and medicine in the United States on this particular issue.
Absolutely.
I mean, Donald Trump needs to be held accountable, but for kind of a different set of issues. Anyway. 5 pounds from Mystic Minds Analysis Tavern. Thanks to those on the line. I recently came out as bi-romantic. I accept femmes of all varieties, including AMAB femboys, hashtag team Sneckmom. Thank you so much.
$5 from BB Bunny 1982. I'm so sorry I missed you in the last group of my faves last week. I wasn't thinking 100%. I love all 4 of you. Hashtag Team Arden. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Even though you voted for Arden, I guess that's fine.
5 alleged dollars from Quantum Chaos. I have no funny jokes today because I am sick. Hashtag Team Mitternacht. Yeah. I don't know if it's really my place to say. I think a lot of you already know and have mentioned, but yeah, Lux lost Mitternacht. So that's really sad. Poor baby. Poor Lux. 5 pounds from Barbara Barrett. Oop, I forgot. Did I read the last one or did I just talk about it? Go for it.
You read the last one. 5 pounds from Barbara Barrett. The burden of proof is always on the claimant, but they never have any. Just prejudice. Hashtag Team Arden. Yep.
Well, they've got the burden. They just don't got the proof.
Yeah, this is true.
TACIS was $5 from Winking Skeever. Weird name. TACIS has meant so much to me as a queer person. Thank you so much for helping me discover who I am over the years. Heart you both. Hashtag Team Arden. Heart you too. Sorry I said your name
Come
was
on,
weird.
Team
It
Ben.
it sounded almost like it was close to a slur. I was like, is this an
Yeah,
appropriate
you're
word
calling
to
people's
say?
names weird and they voted for you. Like, people, stop voting for Arden. She's calling you weird. She's insulting your names. $10 from Joshua Everett, 9887. Ben, do you know offhand whether tackle football or battlefield injuries result in a higher number of TBIs in an average year? We hear about service members a lot, but less about players. Hashtag Team Dr. Ben. I'm willing to, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm willing to say tackle football just because there's so much more of that happening than people out in war right now. So,
Yep. 10 pounds from Barbara Barrett. I was born a girl. My body didn't agree, but once I got courage to face myself, and then through surgery and HRT, I've become indistinguishable from an androgen insensitive woman. Yeah, I mean, I won't pick nits. Sure. I feel ya.
$10 from Bramley CX. When they criminalize our existence, we have no choice but to resist. Hashtag Team Arden. Yes, resist.
Oh, and Monkey said that Lux put up a post on its YouTube community thing announcing that Mitternacht died. So yeah, people know, but sad. Kitties, that's so hard. $5 from that poor worm from Lord Ben. That poor worm starved to death due to the sheer lack of brains RFK possesses. Hey, listen, it saved his life.
Yeah.
Okay, that he didn't have brains. So who really wants brains? Oops, that's not the one that's supposed to go up. That was supposed to be added to the queue. And then you wait your turn, David Haxer. This one's next.
$5 from Green Garbador. My favorite show with my two favorite hosts, although I love you all. What are your favorite dinosaurs? Hashtag Team Ben.
Archaeopteryx.
I'm a sucker. Yeah, I'm a sucker for velociraptors.
That's fair.
I don't know. I like a lot of dinosaurs.
Archaeopteryx is like the one that it's such a long, stupid story that they thought Velociraptor was originally, but then it actually was a different one. And Archaeopteryx, what they originally modeled it after, is actually like the size of a turkey, actually pretty small. But yeah. $5 from Joshua Everett. Impromptu chat poll to start the phrase that ends in blank in disguise. What? Impromptu chat poll to start the phrase that ends with in disguise. Should the word be blessing, robots, or other? Blessing in disguise, robots.
Oh.
Okay. Wow, that was way too much cognitive load for me to understand.
20 Canadian from David Haxor. Sorry, I missed yet another show. Hashtag Team Lux. Lux isn't even here. Clearly, you missed the show.
$10 from Beaker Squeakers. Please accept my weekly tithe. TACIS is the closest thing I have to church. May the monad bless us all with being correctly gendered on this holiday season. Hashtag Dr. Ben MD. Accept your MD.
Thank you. I'm a DO, but that is okay.
Still a doctor, but wrong kind of doctor.
I still am. Yeah. $5 from Bradley Ray Troxel 9976. Muting Joe because he's dishonest. Call that running the show like Matt Dillacunty serve. Hashtag Team Arden. I'm guessing that's a compliment.
I think so. I'm genuinely over. Listen, you guys, I'm probably going to be pulling back from call-in shows by and large, appearing as a host. I'll still be here in production, obviously. You think this thing could run without me? But pulling back as a host, I'm just sick of talking to people like that. Who does that help, right? I don't think it helps anyone. It doesn't help him. It doesn't help us. He's not actually here for a conversation. He wants to play this weird goalpost moving semantic game, and I'm just not interested. And but I do like talking to people like Noai who maybe disagree and are kind of obstinate in a certain sense, it feels like, but ultimately we're able to have a civil, respectful conversation. My stepdad and I disagree politically, and we love to talk politics. We butt heads like crazy, but it's fun. My mom hates how much we like it because she gets nervous that we're going to get actually mad. And I'm like, nah, we're okay. We know how to be respectful and have a conversation.
It's you. Is it?
Oh, is it? I don't know. $5 from Sapphic Hazard.
I don't
Hashtag
know.
Team Arden because we missed you, Arden, even if you were here the whole time in the back. I wasn't here the whole time. I was gone for a little while. I actually don't even feel like I'm completely ready to be back yet, but the bills don't stop coming, even if your mourning process is not over. So
At 20 Canadian from David Haxor. Hashtag Team Arden. Love her southern accent.
well, thank you
You
so
have a southern
much
accent?
for my.
Oh,
Well, I was
that
doing
one.
a
Okay.
when people try to force me to use she/her pronouns for a biological male. That was my thank you.
Okay.
$10
I was
from
like, yeah, she's so southern from Vermont.
yeah. To be fair, we always called my town the south of the north because people wave Confederate flags up in that town. Fucking idiots. $10 from Green Man Dave. Down with the pants, up with the skirts. There's a double meaning in that. Hashtag men and kilts. Hashtag Team Ben.
All right, we're starting to catch up. $10 from Nixie Baby. Hello, Arden and Ben. Love seeing TACIS every week. I have a new job. I need to figure out how to come out at work so I don't have to be misgendered every day. Love y'all. And as always, hashtag Team Arden.
Thank you so much.
I hope that goes well for you.
Yeah, likewise. 10 Canadian dollarinos for David Haxor. Send super chats. Filibuster at the end of the show. Hashtag team producer. I mean, I like that you voted for me, but you also clearly hate me on a certain degree.
10 Canadian from David Haxor. Hashtag Team Zerba.
What is this
So
nonsense?
you're voting for people that aren't even here.
$10 from David Haxor. You have an X chromosome, sneaky little fella. Hashtag Team Arden. Yes. Clyde Filters. They got a sneaky little extra X chromosome and their sex chromosomes. It's how it works.
$20 from David Haxor. Contagious ADHD. Hashtag Team Arden. You're just gonna keep voting for Team Arden.
David Haxor usually votes for you, so I'm surprised that I'm getting all
Yeah,
their votes
usually.
today.
Yeah, I feel betrayed.
You should.
David and I are no longer friends.
$5
Yeah.
from Barbara Barrett. Gender is not between the ears, not written in the chromosome. Trans people wouldn't exist if gender is between the ears. Trans people wouldn't exist if gender was determined by chromosomes. True.
$5 from Credoma. Arden relating to Winter losing their train of thought was super relatable. Hashtag Team Arden.
ADHD baby. Listen. It's just how my brain works. $20 from David Haxor. Hashtag Team the Lion for fighting for human rights. Thank you.
Come on, Team Ben. $10 from Fiona the Foxy. I'm De La Chapelle, and it was the only way I could change my records at the VA because federal rules are just wrong. It's weird getting cervical cancer screening recommendations when I don't have it. Yeah, it's like the very binary recommendations is not helping anybody, and it's hurting a lot of people.
That's so
At least
silly.
that story is more funny. But
$5 from Melatonin Ale. I lose my train of thought with my therapist all the time, and I swear I've been taking my meds. Hashtag Team Arden. Hashtag Blue for the girlies. Same. Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. Yep, that is a thing that happens. Yep.
Is this one mine?
Yep.
10 Canadian from David Haxor. Hashtag Arden yawn. Sorry, I'm boring you. Hashtag Team Ben.
Is that a neutral?
Is
Since we
this?
got hashtag Arden
I
and
don't
hashtag Team Ben.
know.
I'm gonna give it to
I
you.
don't know what this is.
Hashtag Arden yawn,
Yeah.
but hashtag Team Ben. I think that's yours.
Yeah.
$10 from David Haxor. I told my sister I was offered a magical pill that made me the other gender. I'd take it. She said I was trans. Does taking a magical gender changing pill make me trans? Taking it doesn't, but if you want to take it, I feel like that most likely means
Yeah.
you're trans, but maybe not.
Yeah.
No prescriptions here for that.
5 Canadian from David Haxor. Send super chats. Make Arden and Ben work longer. I mean, yeah, send the super chats, but vote for Team Ben. Like we're
You guys
losing
are
by a lot today. Come
sadistic
on.
freaks. They want us to suffer. They send
Yeah.
send puns when they know we hate puns. They send extra short supers just to fill up time. $5 from Legally Mod. My phone is stupid. I clearly wasn't paying attention. Trans kids should be evacuated from this stupid country. Hashtag Team Ben so Arden can cook.
5 Canadian again from David Haxor. May the monad bless you and keep you. and always watch upon you forever and ever. Amen. Back to the monad. If is Forrest's mug back to the monad? Because I kind of feel like it should be.
It may or may not be monad related, as is Erica's. $5 from Domestic. I want to hear Arden defend transgender for everyone. Hashtag Team Ben. That's fair. I think I could make that really funny.
$49.99 from Narcissa 800. Super chats are censoring what I wanted to say. Didn't seem particularly offensive to me. I don't know about that. I'm
Depends
not in
on the
charge here.
words. YouTube gets weird about certain words, like especially if you're talking about like biological sex and you use the word sex or anything like that. Sometimes it can trip stuff. Sorry. $5, but thank you for the generous donation. $5 from Domestic in order to help Arden reorient to work thing. Hashtag Team Ben.
Hey, thank you. Now we're catching up. See, I just have to beg the audience, and then they feel bad for me. I get the pity votes. £5 from Katinka Palatine. We can vote for the people that aren't, or we can vote for people that aren't here. Hashtag Team Katie. I mean, you can, again, we can't police your language. Like you can vote for whoever you want. It doesn't mean it's going to have meaningful consequences, though. That's
David Haxer, you're sending more. I'm just going to let you guys know we have to stop at 5 o'clock. So if you guys send us too much, I don't know what to tell you. Your money's going to be wasted. So I please don't. $5 from David Haxer, Team Ben. We actually really got to crank through these. We're on very limited time.
Yeah. 5 from Beaker Squeakers. David Haxer, go to bed. Dr. Ben Dio, thank you so much.
What the fuck? David Haxer, Team Ben. David Haxer, Team Ben. David Haxer, Team Ben. David Haxer, Team Ben. There you go. You can have that one.
$5 from Green Garbador. Arden, what are your Krusty's favorite food flavors?
Fig and
Hashtag Team Ben.
insect. Fig and insect. They also like Vitamil fruit. They like that one quite a bit. Fucking David Haxer, something for us, Team Ben.
5 from Legally Mod. May the Tooth Bunny be with us. Hashtag Team Ben. All right.
$10 from the Duke of Shostka. Alexandria got it. This should be a non-issue, yet evil bastards using literally 1935 Nazi talking points blow it to heavens for personal greed. Hashtag Team Ben. Rooting for the underdog. Love the accent, though. I like how the way I'm saying it has turned into 6-7. Team Ben. I got to witness 6-7 in real time from my 12-year-old brother, though, while I was home. And he told me he scored a goal, and he was like, I hit the 6-7 with the celly. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? He's like, the celly. Like, when you score a touchdown, like the celly. And I was like, oh, the celebration. You mean you got a goal and did 6-7 to celebrate? Yes, okay. I translated Gen Alpha fucking old. Brain rot meme speak.
David Haxor's another 5. Smacks Team Ben. That's how we get around the censor.
Yeah, Joshua Everett, hashtag Team Ben. Oh my God.
I like how this turned out, though.
Yeah, it worked out well for you.
All super chats in the next 8 minutes. Hashtag Team Ben. Well, it's no longer the next 8 minutes because we're running short on time. We still got to do punishment.
$5 from David Haxer, Team Ard. Just kidding. Hashtag Team Ben. And then finally a $10 from David Haxer, Witness. Hashtag Team Ben. That's it. I'm calling it. Super chats are appreciated, but from this point out, they no longer factor into our goal, and now we can move on to the punishment. Thank you, David Haxor, motherfucker. Just kidding.
Punishment phase.
All right. So what do I have to do? Men must all wear skirts. Okay.
Yep.
Give me a sec. Let me get it set up. Must all wear skirts. And host left is the loser. And host right is the winner. Bow, 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 bow. All right. Queuing it up.
works.
Here we go. Let me do a dang thing. Oops. Wait, why has it not got me on that? Hold on. I have to fix something really quick. I've also got to pee so bad, so I can't wait for the show to be done. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. Charging up the clock in 3, 2, 1. All right, listen. I've heard lots of things about what people are supposed to wear, what people of different genders are supposed to wear for clothes. And, you know, men wear these like ugly monotone suits with like a flash of color on a tie, and women wear dresses. And depending on the environment, it can be slutty or professional. But I'm ready to blow the doors wide open. Men, on average, not all men have dangly things in their pants, but many men do have dangly things in their pants. And what better way to sit freely and comfortably with the dangly thing in your pants than wearing a skirt? Why? The Scottish had this right, okay, from the get-go. They knew that wearing a loose piece of fabric around your waist with nothing covering your family jewels was the right way to go. And I think we need to bring that back. I think if we want to bring back masculinity in this society, we want to bring back manhood, we want to see our men become men again, well, by golly, they need to put on a fucking skirt and strut that booty down Main Street in whatever city you happen to live in. You know, I think there's multiple ways we can go about it. I mean, like, I think skirts could be acceptable, but only in times where they're doing some exercise and they don't want things to be jiggling too much. So you have to, then you can put on a skirt. But generally speaking, I think skirts are going to be the way to go. Also, I think it's going to be an opportunity for husbands and wives to share clothing finally. You know, when it's lesbians or two gay men, they're always sharing clothes, but straight people never get that privilege. And I think it's just really unfair that queer people don't recognize how privileged they are to share clothes with their partners. And now it's time that straight, cis, hetero couples will get to share their clothes in their closets. So, yeah, jingle balls. Good job, chat. Thanks. All right. Well, everybody, that has been our show. We do have technically 4 minutes before we have to completely wrap up for the other show, but I don't know. I would love to know what y'all think. I mean, I realize some people want us to talk to people like Joe, but I really don't see the value in it anymore. I think maybe on some other platforms, like there's a use to having a competent leftist pro-trans person debunking those points on a different platform. But on this one, like, I think fundamentally the nature of call-in shows has really shifted to where, and this is a representative of how the dialogue has been degrading across culture, but I don't feel like we're convincing people in the audience as much as we used to. I think it used to be the audience was really discerning, and like if they failed to have answers, nice.
Convinced me.
Matt's got a skirt on. If they failed to have answers for questions, the audience would like see that and they would change their minds. But nowadays it feels more like it's an exercise in identification for like you guys to watch us beat up on somebody like that. And I just don't really think it was useful for us to have taken that caller. So did you want to show off your, oops, hold on.
Are you still live?
Yeah.
I was like, you convinced me. I'll put on a skirt and then.
Good job. He's had this kilt forever. So
I don't ever get to wear it.
Good job, baby. Everyone said I was making him gay. There's your proof right there. Yeah, but anyway, all this, let me know what you guys think. Cause I think I personally want to be doing less calls like that. And it's part of the reason why I want to step back from calls. Cause I don't want to impede other hosts on this network from taking calls like that if they want to. But, I don't know. I just feel like it sucks. Like, why do I want to talk to somebody who is being like overtly obstinate from the get-go, like moving the goalpost in literally the second sentence he puts forward? Is that useful to anyone? I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I don't know, Ben. Should we be taking calls from people like Joe?
I don't think so. Like, I think it just makes everybody mad. I mean, sure, it'll generate a clip. It'll maybe get some revenue as far as, you know, rage baiting people and all that stuff. But I don't know if it's more productive beyond that.
Yeah.
So,
and again, there is a place for that. Like, I realize people like to identify with the hosts and to get that catharsis from seeing us like dunk on them, but like that's not really what I signed up for all this for. So but Joe, if you're still watching in the audience, you want to call back, listen to what I actually said, my concerns with you were, and if you want to try again, I invite you to try back again. But I'm not going to be doing this weird goalpost shifting where this starts with the question being one thing and then you move it to this other thing, this like Mott and Bailey, like straw man kind of situation. All right, everybody, with that, that is the end. David Haxor has sent 4 more super chats saying Team Ben and hashtag Team Matt in a skirt. So thank you very much, David Haxor, for those extra supers. You guys go have fun over on Calling It Now, and we will see you all not next week, potentially not even the week after that, but I don't know yet. Later. Go to patreon.com/calltheline. Help support us, keep the lights on in this new year. Give us the holiday gift of your financial support for our work. Love you guys. Bye.